Peace, family. Y'all know who it is. It's Dr. Bakari K. Lumumba, the progenitor of LumumbaSpeaks.com, a Black Empowerment initiative where we believe we can gain a competitive advantage by always betting on Black, in conjunction, once again, with Bequaline Network, the Pan-African social media extraordinaire, and the home of African-centered news and information, family. And we have a great show for you all. We're going to be interviewing the business bully. I like to call him the Broad Street bully, of course, Dave Anderson. Before we get started, family, just want to go over some ground rules here at, of course, Lumumba Speaks and Bequaline Network. Diversity of thought is welcome here on the platform. So irrespective of you on the left, you're on the right, or you're right down the middle, and this is a place where we can have, of course, intellectually engaging, meaningful, substantive conversations that are, of course, built towards helping us solve the issues that we face on a diurnal basis. Number two, this is a space of Black empowerment. We believe in the three N's of Black power, right? Self-respect, self-defense, and of course, self-determination. So no epithets of any kind are allowed. If someone makes an epithet or uses an epithet, that will be removed from the platform immediately. Number three, facts over feelings. We want to make sure that if someone makes a claim and you disagree, that you attack the argument, not the person. So no ad hominems, no. We believe in, of course, facts over feelings. You attack the argument of the person. And then, of course, last but not least, no fundamentally false statements. You can, for example, give your opinion on a subject matter. And a great example that I always use is you could give the opinion that LeBron James is the greatest basketball player to ever lace up a pair of gym shoes, right? However, if you were to state that LeBron James was the best player ever because Michael Jordan only won 3 scoring titles, that would be a claim that, of course, is adverse to facts. As a scholar, a reputable scholar and academic, I have to make sure that I'm not allowing my platform to be used to disseminate misinformation as it hurts my, of course, credibility. And then, of course, last but not least, our mission is neither to exonerate or vilify, but to challenge conventional wisdom and re-examine what has been previously accepted as fact. So before I bring him on, read his bio. Dave Anderson is a 22-time best-selling author, college professor, business strategist, keynote speaker, media entrepreneur, and nationally recognized thought leader known as the business bully. For more than 3 decades, he has worked at the intersection of business development, technology, media, culture, politics, and economic empowerment. Anderson began his professional speaking career in 1991 and has advised entrepreneurs, executives, and media personalities, authors, organizations, and emerging leaders on business growth, branding, monetization, digital strategy, and institutional power. As a professor, he has taught entrepreneurship, artificial intelligence, digital media, business strategy, and content development. A digital media innovator, Anderson launched HitMeOnTheHip.com in the early 2000s, one of the earliest mobile alerts and audio content services. He later created The Black World Today, an early on-demand audio platform, and founded Business Bully TV. Anderson is the author of numerous books examining entrepreneurship, leadership, politics, culture, and Black economic empowerment, including The Real Black Agenda, Politically Conservative, Culturally Pro-Black, and Intellectually Independent. His work emphasizes foundational Black American identity, lineage-based reparations, economic ownership, political accountability, self-determination, and measurable institutional results. In addition to his academic and business work, Anderson is an experienced broadcaster, podcast host, comedian, and theologian. His commentary and interviews have generated millions of views across digital platforms. Dave Anderson approaches public discourse as an educator, entrepreneur, researcher, author, and builder with more than 30 years of professional experience and a documented history of creating business platforms and intellectual property and strategies. You can find him on Instagram at The Business Bully. Mr. Anderson, how are you doing today?
I mean, you can call me professor. We're being intellectual today. Dr. Lumumba, I don't have any interesting complaints. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to speak with you. How are you, sir?
I'm doing quite all right. It's been a long day, but I'm handling my BI. So
listen, that's what we do.
We're gonna hold it down. In the great state of Ohio. He's in Philadelphia. Some people call it Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. But hey, we're gonna hold it down. I know, right? 215. But we're gonna get started. As I said, it's going to be a bit of an interview. Also, it's going to be a bit of a conversation. And then at the end, family, the link is in the description. I'll put the link in the chat. You can tap in and be part of the convo. Make sure that you follow the ground rules here at Lumumba Speaks and Bequaline Network. So, first question is, what is your ethnicity?
Oh, I'm a foundational Black American. That's my ethnicity and my historical lineage. I'm sure you know this. My people were formed in the United States through centuries of slavery, Reconstruction, Jim Crow, segregation, Great Migration, cultural creation, institution building, military service, political struggle, and resistance. For me, FBA people are not genetically or culturally uniform. We're an ethnogenic American population shaped by varying degrees of African, European, Indigenous American, and other ancestry. But ancestry is not the same thing as ethnicity. I don't identify as Nigerian, Ghanaian, Jamaican, Kenyan, or Haitian, or any other modern nationality to which I do not belong. Those people have the right to name themselves specifically. So do I.
What is your political ideology?
Oh, great question. And this is always the one that really trips people out, Bakari. Can I call you Bakari? Is that okay?
Sure.
Oh, listen, just want to make sure. I'm politically conservative. I'm culturally pro-foundational Black American. I'm very constitutionally grounded and intellectually independent. As far as my beliefs politically go, I'm big on ownership, family, entrepreneurship, educational excellence, religious freedom, free speech, self-defense, personal responsibility, limited government, and very strong institutions. But that doesn't mean just because I want limited government that the government shouldn't still be accountable. So for the way I look at it, when government creates what I would call a legally documented injury, the government has an obligation to repair it. So I don't belong to any political party emotionally. I focus on policies, whether they produce ownership, safety, stability, opportunity, and measurable power for my people. I'm very clear when I say this. I'm a conservative. I'm not a Republican. Republicans don't own conservatism. Democrats in and of themselves don't own Black people. And I know that's controversial for some people, but I neither rent party space for anybody in my conscience.
Very good. You said that you're a college professor. Where do you teach?
Temple University. I'm on leave right now, but I teach marketing, social media marketing, digital branding, and broadcasting and PR communications. And of course, some
are
AI.
You tenure track or adjunct?
Oh, I'm adjunct because Temple decided to remove the tenure track plan. So that in and of itself has been a sticking point, which why a lot of professors have, organized strikes and things of that nature. Me personally, man, and the one thing that I'm very proud of is I went to that school and made change. We were able to build up a Black student union. I am the founder of Temple University's radio station, which is called WHIP, which stands for We Have Infinite Potential. I sat outside of the late Peter Leocoris' office for hours until he would see me, because I'm paying all this tuition. You put a whole bunch of old white people in at the jazz radio station, and I can't get my hands on equipment. Something's going to have to change. And so he gave me a budget and a room in what was called the SAC, which is the Student Activity Center. And now that is the dominant radio station on Temple University's campus almost 3 decades later. For me, I'm also lucky to be one of the only professors at Temple University with a complete 5-star rating on Rate My Professor. I love working with young people and showing them the possibilities, because a lot of education, at least this is the thing that tripped me out. I would fight with the administration on this, and I'm sure you can relate as an educator. They would say, Dave, you're doing a great job and everybody loves you, but you're teaching them how to build an agency. We need you to teach them how to work at one. I'm not really with that. I think one of the strongest things we can do as Black people is be able to own something and operate something. And we rob our children, specifically Black children, when we tell them things like, what do you want to be when you grow up? I started my career at 9. So I'm not going to waste or tell a child to waste the first 2 decades of their life by waiting until they're so-called grown in order to be successful or be in their career path.
What are your views on the term African American?
I hate it.
Why?
Charlize Theron is African American. Elon Musk is African American. The the Democratic Socialist Zoran Mandami of New York is African American. If everybody can cop to that term, then there's absolutely no exclusivity. So
that's not an accurate. They're not African Americans.
I'm sorry. Last I checked, do they not qualify as African American?
Well, no, they don't.
can they not list African American on their situation?
African American is a term used for individuals who are descendants of U.S. chattel enslavement. The term African American is used because African Americans can't identify a particular nation state as their geopolitical place of origin.
Okay.
So if you are able to, if you have a, so you talk about the white female actress from South Africa, she'll be what, South African American, or you talk about the current mayor of New York. I forget what country he's actually
Zoran
from.
Mamdani.
Yes, right. Just like the person will be a Jamaican American, or Haitian American, or Moroccan American.
Yes.
Right. African American is an umbrella term for individuals who are descendants of chattel enslavement who are unable to do what? Identify an actual nation state as their place of origin.
Right. Absolutely. So what I'm saying is, of course, we're not talking ethnicity, but what we are talking about is the fact that I just don't like a blanket term, because here's the gag, right? There's no place else in the diaspora where someone is going around. I've never heard anybody who's Pan-African tell somebody Jamaican, hey, you're not Jamaican, you're African Jamaican. You're not Brazilian, you're African Brazilian. You're not Haitian, you're African Haitian. The only time that term
actually used,
I've never in general discussion for by and large, because I don't believe there are any absolutes in the universe, but you know good and well that 9 times out of 10, when we're speaking generally, people are not using those terms for anybody else except for us. Because
I think we have to, if I can interject, there's a couple of issues. One, typically a person's going to make a generalization of a person being Jamaican if they're outside of their homeland. Now, someone such as myself who has traveled abroad extensively, particularly to the West Indies and Africa, individuals do use the term Afro-Jamaican or Indo-Jamaican in Jamaica. Same as in Haiti, same as in Barbados, Cuba, Panama. These are places I've been, etc. So I can say that because I've been to those places.
Certainly, as about like this, you're talking to somebody who does business, in plenty of places.
Example, if as an African American, if we travel abroad, they'll say, "Oh, you're an American." They generalize because we're outside of our homeland. When we're inside of our homeland, there's a distinction between, okay, are you an African American, or are you Latino American, or are you Jewish American, etc. But typically outside of a person's homeland, that's where the generalization is made.
Okay. So when you look at somebody like Zoran Mamdani, who got scholarships and considerations by filing as an African American, why didn't all of that you just said come into play?
Well, what scholarships did he receive?
I'll have to give you the name, because I know he got grants. Hold on, let me pull it up for you. If you give me one moment, happy to do that.
No problem.
Hold on 1 second. How's the weather in Ohio?
That's cool.
Yeah, it's been kind of rainy here.
Yeah, it's been humid, but it's all good.
Listen, and that's the thing, man. Like my mom, she moved to Arizona. My brother and I found out, God rest my brother's soul, but my brother and I found out that my parents would take vacations without us. In one particular vacation, they wound up going to this place called Gold Canyon, Arizona. My dad died in 2005. And it's a situation where my mom and dad decided they were going to retire out there. My dad, of course, passed in 2005, but my mom has been out there for, I would say, like the past 14 years, and she loves it because it's hotter, but it's a dry heat, so it affects you. Yeah. So
I used to live in California, so I don't wear. It's much better because when you walk outside, you're not sweating. Because you walk outside, you're sweating, but out there you don't. So real quick, I see someone saying Bakari is lying in bad faith. I'm not. I could give an example. When I was a graduate student at Ohio University, there was a multicultural center on campus. The director's last name, I forget her first name, but her last name was Winsome. So she'd always say, you win some, you lose some. She was from Jamaica, and she would always tell me I'm Afro-Jamaican. And she would tell me that in Jamaica, there's a distinction between Afro-Jamaicans, Indo-Jamaicans, etc. So this isn't subterfuge that I'm engaging in. This is maybe anecdotal, but from being in these places, this has been my experience. But
okay, so let me get back to the question, because I don't want to I don't want to interrupt, because again, I'm always
no,
one to call balls.
I'm not Jamaican. If somebody asks, is he Jamaican? No, I'm not. Go right ahead.
I apologize. I misspoke. What I meant to say was that Zoran Mamdani claimed the Black or African American category on his Columbia application.
Okay, yes.
That's why it's problematic, because of that. They do those little loophole type situations, and then what winds up happening is people who can get those spots don't get those spots. I'll give you another example. Are you familiar with the actress Mindy Kaling?
No.
Mindy Kaling, she is a comedian. She's South Indian the same way Kamala Harris is South Indian, right? Her brother went and he wrote an entire book on it. It's on CNN. You can check it out yourself. He wrote an entire book. He shaved his head because he's melanated.
Oh, yes, I saw that.
Yes, I saw that. And so I'm just, for the sake of your audience who might not know the story.
He did into medical school. Yes, he was.
Yeah, and you know what he checked? Do you know what he checked off on those applications?
Black.
Checked off African American.
Well, here's the thing, as someone who works in higher ed,
that's two of us.
Applications typically say Black or African American.
Right.
And one is they're not Black at all.
Correct. Neither of them.
So the issue there is the institution. Mm-hmm. And I can say this as someone who's been the director of the Black Culture Center at a predominantly white institution, who's been on the committee for, of course, scholarships, right? And we put on there, you must be Black or of African descent. So that's an issue where, yes, her brother, I remember that. It was all over the media when he shaved his head to try to look like a Black person.
And took an opportunity from people who, I don't know what your lineage is, but he took an opportunity from foundational Black Americans.
I'm an African American. But that was an issue where the institute, that's an issue for the institution. Like, hey, what are you doing here? You're supposed to fact check these individuals.
I agree. But again, if there were specific delineations like everybody else delineates, that would not have been able to have happened. The fact that you were able to step up and make sure that what did you call it? The multicultural, what kind of center was it?
Yeah, at Howard University is a multicultural center.
Yeah. I've given Howard University hundreds of thousands of dollars. My oldest went there.
Ohio University.
Oh, Ohio. I thought you said Howard.
Yeah. Oh, not Howard. Yeah. I'm talking about the Bison. So, but the issue there is the institution, because the scholarships are for, if they have identity-based scholarships, it'll be Black, African American, Asian, Latino. They have scholarships for Jewish students, LGBTQ, Pride, queer, right? Typically, the committee who decides who receives those scholarships are what? They have to then do what? Decide to make sure that the person qualifies. So that's an issue for the institution.
But by that same token, we can't be intellectually disingenuous. And here's what I mean. And I don't think you're doing it intentionally, but you know good and hell well, especially at a PWI, which both you and I have been associated with, right? They're just there to check off the box. They don't care how they check off the box. They just want the box checked off. It's not about being thorough. It is not about being accurate. Therefore, the term is still problematic. To me, that's as problematic as a person who comes over here and is Nigerian, and they're identifying like they're us, and there are certain set-asides when it comes to scholarships or grants that an African American, as you put it, would qualify for, that should be specifically for foundational Black Americans. That's why it's problematic, because there's no need for due diligence.
Taking place?
I'm sorry?
Can you provide an example of that taking place?
Oh, several examples. I know plenty of kids who have come over here. I'll give you an example. There's a kid named Tabo Francis Imejulu Jr., who I went to college with, who got a Black scholarship, and he had only been in the United States for a year and a half. That is problematic.
Okay.
Because Africa, last I checked, and again, I have to defer to the experts, but Africa, last I checked, is made up of 54 countries. Would you agree that's a fact? Okay. Out of those 54 countries, we're talking thousands of languages, immeasurable amounts of religious practices, and tribal distinctions. You come here and they say, I'm Nigerian American, but they're usually either Igbo or Yoruba. Am I still correct? Did I say anything that was not factual? So Exactly. So we're talking about all of these tribes, and all of these tribes are not unified
Well,
because
hold on real quick. We use the term ethnic group because the term tribe is pejorative.
I apologize. I'm not trying to be pejorative, nor am I trying to be negative. But thank you for correcting me. I'm learning. That's why we're here. We're here to learn and have a good cultural exchange of ideas. Ethnic groups or ethnic groupings. Is that what you said? Is that the correct term?
Ethnic group or clan is the proper
Okay,
term.
so you have several different clans that for centuries, way before Columbus sailed the ocean blue or Leif Erikson or whoever you like to pull out, were still at each other. To this day, they are still at each other. So we can't talk as if there is not a difference in delineation when people of the same area have different clans and they identify by those different clans. I'm from North Philly. I never went down to Southwest and claimed I was a Southwest dude, even though we're all Philadelphians. I love Beans, but Beans is from South Philly. There's a difference there,
right? But the issue,
and that in and of itself,
but the issue, and I think you're making a claim that's a bit immaterial in terms of getting the scholarship. The requirement is that you are racially black. Your person's clan, ethnicity, or nationality or religious beliefs are immaterial. The only thing that matters is if you're racially black. That's
okay.
it.
So by that same token, if I were to go to a university in Jamaica and the scholarship is for a Jamaican person, is that Jamaican person? Hold on, wait. Should that Jamaican person feel? And I'm asking specifically, should that Jamaican person feel slighted if I get that scholarship? And you know, good and hell well, I'm not Jamaican.
Well, that's a false equivalency because the scholarship isn't based on nationality or ethnicity. The scholarship is based on one's race. Now,
but ain't Jamaicans black?
Once again, you're conflating race and nationality. Now, if there was a situation where there were specific scholarships for African Americans and someone who was not an African American tried to get the scholarship, I would take extreme umbrage with that. Just like how when there were those Indian individuals who were cosplaying as black to get scholarships that were set aside for black people. That's a problem. I have a problem with that.
Okay.
And this is why I made sure when I was director of a Black Culture Center and I sat on the chair, I was the chair of those scholarships, I made sure the individuals actually qualify. But the qualification is not based on nationality, not based on ethnicity. It's based on race.
Great. So are you saying that Jamaicans are a completely different race than foundational Black Americans?
No, they're not. They're Black people.
Exactly. They're Black people, but they do have certain cultural traditions that you believe are rich and important to preserve.
But that has nothing to do with the qualification for the scholarship. The scholarship is based on race. It doesn't matter about a person's cultural traditions. If you have an issue with that, then you need to take that up with the entity that actually provides the scholarship.
Would you then say that when you're when you were checking and making sure that these scholarships were above board and you were doing all of your due diligence, did you feel like across the educational sphere that was the standard that everybody did, or were you doing something absolutely exceptional to make sure the right people got the right things?
I did something I believe was exceptional, and one of the reasons I did that is because I saw individuals who weren't supposed to be getting scholarships for Black, that were supposed to be attributed to Black people when I was an undergraduate and graduate student.
Right.
Because
so you did what you
at the TWI, they just checked the box.
Exactly. So that's the whole point.
A big thing that they would do was, and I saw this when I was an undergrad, the scholarship would be for Black students. And then you would get maybe a dean or a new AVP that would come in and rewrite the scholarship to say minority.
Mm-hmm. Trick bag.
And then just say the AVP was a member of a particular community that has a rainbow flag, and then they would make sure that those benefits would go to that particular community. So I've seen these things take place, and that's why when I was in position, I make sure those whole type of things didn't happen. But the issue is the requirement for these scholarships in higher education is one's race or gender or sexual orientation. That's typically what it comes down to. Sometimes it's economic, like you're a first generation student, you come from a background where your parents made sub 30,000, things of that nature, right? But once again, the issue is not about cultural distinction or one's nationality. If an individual has an issue with that and they want scholarships specifically for African Americans, fine, I have no problem with that. But you have to make sure that you create an endowment or a scholarship fund that states that, not race, but ethnicity. That is all.
Again, so but I was following up with the question I asked you, which was, did you feel like you were being exceptional when doing your due diligence when you compare yourself to how other folks operate within the higher education system? And you said yes. So you know as well as I do, being a scholar, that exceptions very rarely disprove the rule, correct?
Disprove the rule, yes, but the issue typically is not based on nationality or ethnicity. Typically is given to individuals who aren't Black and are a particularly different identity groups, such as queer, pride, LGBTQ, feminists, etc.
Yeah, what I'm saying is the bottom line is, if exceptions don't disprove the rule, and we have people who are skating in under a guise because they can cosplay. Heck, there are a myriad of videos right now when we start talking about, for example, that has absolutely nothing to do with this particular conversation, but it's still good for context, is you got people saying, hey, well, we're Haitian, so ICE can come and get you because I look just like you. ICE can't come and get me because this is my home. This is my nation. I'm here. I have been here. I was born here. I'm a legal citizen, and I can trace my lineage back to the 1670s. Which, you know, again, makes me rare, but still makes me foundational. And that's why, for me, to answer your question, I do not like, nor will I ever like the term African American. Not to mention, I also do not rewrite history. I recite history. And that term got real popularized through the NAACP and the Rainbow Push Coalition, specifically Jesse Jackson, in order to try and get some global dollars from the African continent and try to do business on the back end that did not benefit foundational Black Americans by and large 40 years ago. So, I mean, that's where I am with it.
When was the term African American first used?
I don't know when it was first used, but I know around 1988, Jesse Jackson went on a heck of a campaign trying to get everybody to use it.
Because we know Malcolm X used the term in the 1960s.
He used Afro-American.
Right. And we also
That's not African-American.
We also know that we also know T. Thomas Fortune and John Edward Bruce created the African-American organization in 1892.
Certainly. Those are outliers. We can't use outliers to talk about the generalities.
We also know that the term African-American was used in the 1700s. We even have New York Times articles that cite that. So let me ask you this question.
Does not. Wait, because we cannot skip past things. That does not change the fact that everything I just said regarding Jesse Jackson in 1988 popularized that term. So much so that if you
how was he trying to? What benefits was he trying to? Can you give an example of him trying to get benefits from the African continent?
Certainly, he was trying to create different trade lines and have a direct cultural connection from America to Africa. He said it himself. That's like very well documented. And even if you go 4 or 5 years later, when Malcolm X is
trying to trade.
Again, you would have to ask the Reverend. I wasn't in on every single conversation. I only had about 5 conversations with the Reverend myself.
Well, I'm just saying, but what I
made the claim that he said. Let me do it this way.
Because I know he wasn't in industry.
No, he wasn't in industry, but that has never stopped him before. Jesse Jackson has always been in business, which is why he was in business with Donald Trump in 1984's campaign and the 1988's campaign. Jesse Jackson has always been a businessman. One of the biggest business models of the Rainbow Push Coalition is when something happens that disparages what he called African Americans, he would then try to bring threats to a company in order to say, I'm going to expose you, or you're going to cut a check, or we're going to sue you, and we're going to leverage the media. That was his business model, and he got paid in order to do that. True. So to say he's not in an industry, he was in one of the biggest industries that is still thriving today. Because wait, I got to be able. Wait. I got to be able to finish my point, good brother. Jesse Jackson walked so that Ben Crump could fly to a $600 million net worth. So he was in an industry. He didn't have a tangible product. His product was mobilizing Black people's fear, frustration, anger, and racial discrimination, animus, in order to make money. So yeah,
it's very true. The Boondocks did actual parody of him on their TV show. Reverend Rollo Goodlove was the character.
Rollo Goodlove, yeah, played by CeeLo Green.
The Boondocks cartoon. So let me ask you this question. Sure. Can you articulate the primary difference between Black nationalism and Pan-Africanism?
Can I articulate that? It broke up.
Articulate the difference between
sure
Black nationalism and Pan-Africanism.
Okay. In my mind, and again, I don't have a PhD. I don't have that level of discipline. My AUDHD kicks in. Black nationalism primarily focuses on being independent, political, economic, cultural, institutional power for a particular Black population. Pan-Africanism is the broader political and cultural project or idea seeking unity or cooperation amongst African nations and people of African descent throughout the world. They can overlap, but they definitely answer different questions. So Black nationalism says, how does this specific population control its institutions, its resources, its political destiny, and its future? While Pan-Africanism asks, how can people connected to Africa cooperate across borders? For me, my disagreement begins when cooperation becomes compulsory identity, and when foundational Black American people are told we must surrender our specificity in order to prove racial solidarity. Because you're not asking anybody else in the diaspora to do that. Oh, all the time. There's a myriad of podcasts and shows that I've done where people have told me, and I'm happy to send you the links if you'd like, where they have said, well, we're all Black. We just need to do this, that, and the third. But, this FBA thing, and it's not a thing. It's a lineage. I never went to any, like, for example, are you familiar with the YouTube channel I Never Knew TV?
No.
Okay. It's one of the largest YouTube channels for Pan-Africanism or Voices of the Diaspora on YouTube. We have well over 700,000 subscribers, and the co-owner is a Jamaican man. Never once do we sit up there and stifle anybody's voice, but never once has he ever told me that, we're all Black. We work cooperatively on business. That does not have anything to do with my pride, my lineage, or my culture. So that's an example. Another example is real quick.
So you're speaking to the concept of flat Blackness, because you just said that this Jamaican guy has not asked you to distribute. For context sake. Let me finish answering your question for you, good brother. Bear with me. It's a long trip, but it's worth the ride. Stay with me. There's a show called Chewing the Fat with Smooth, and Smooth is he's Caribbean. I forget what kind of Caribbean he is. But he was just like, I just think if we all just get together and we can do this, that, and the third, and we can do this, that, and the third. It's like even the African Union itself treats the diaspora as a people of African origin outside of the continent that are, willing to contribute to the continent's development and the building of the African Union. That in and of itself is about a particular institutional project. I am here to make sure that my clan, foundational Black Americans, are taken care of first. I'm not going to come clean your house when my house got roaches in it. That does not make any sense to me. Well, I would say this, as a Pan-Africanist, I am in community with a number of Pan-Africanists on the continent, and that is not the case.
Then what is the case?
And we're going to get to this later in the conversation, sure. But I have what people would call receipts to show that of course, is adverse to facts. There may be some individuals who may think that way. We do know that the African Union has the sixth region of the African Union where individuals can return home if they so choose, but it's not limited to that. Do you think the FBA movement has provided clarity or confusion in the African American community regarding one's identity?
Okay, a few things. Number one, let me be clear. If you're talking about foundational Black Americans, grassroots call for delineation, that's one thing, but this is not a movement. We're not the Black Panthers. We're not Black Lives Matter.
I didn't say movement. I just said
no, I didn't say you did, but I'm trying to define what you mean as far as that. I'm a little confused.
Clarity or confusion regarding one's identity.
Okay. No, I'm really clear on my identity. I'm a foundational Black American, period, point blank. So I'll give you an example, right? So on my on my mother's side of the family, I can trace back to the very peanut farm / plantation that my grandfather's grandfather was a slave on, that my grandfather's father was a sharecropper on, that my grandfather actually wound up working with my great uncle, Uncle Luther, and owned that peanut farm for quite some time. That is that side of the family. On the Anderson side of the family, the majority of the Andersons were not enslaved. So there are some of us who are descended from slaves, and there's some of us who are not. Just that, for me, is what that is. And so I think that we got to be very clear on how our choosing to delineate based on our ethnicity, our lineage, and the fact that this is our homeland, and it's much older than, let's just say, Nigeria, right? Does not in any way, shape, or form confuse anybody who understands what we're doing. It only seems to confuse people who want to benefit from cosplaying as foundational Black Americans.
Interesting. I'm not following there. How does it confuse individuals that you allege are seeking to cosplay as African Americans?
It's not alleged. You can go up and down TikTok. There are countless, hundreds of thousands of clips of people saying that. When you ask them a question, oh, I'm Black American, and then you say, where are your people from? Oh, well, my mom's from Haiti and my dad's from Trinidad. You're not a foundational Black American. But again,
they didn't state that they were foundational Black Americans.
Brother,
the second issue, hold on. The second issue is we tend to find individuals when they're second, third generation, right? They begin to identify by race and, of course, nationality. A great example of that would be Biggie Smalls. His mother was Jamaican.
Certainly. And you know what his mother said? You know what his mother said? Because I knew Miss Valletta personally. His mother said, I did not want Christopher messing with that damn Black music. He could have been the next Jimmy Cliff if he could sing a little bit better, but I like his voice the way it is. She made sure that she wanted her son, and she was very clear about it, that she wanted her son to delineate and not integrate with foundational Black Americans. But Big became a product of hold
on. Did she say that, or did she say she didn't want him getting involved in the hip hop music industry?
She wanted him to be a good Jamaican boy and get a good job in trade. She didn't use the term delineate, but I spoke to the woman. Like it's a world of difference between just, hearing something or watching a movie versus being there. You're talking about somebody who's been in the industry since the Reagan administration. So we can talk about how we feel, or we can talk about what I know. And what I know is I'm not saying that. When I said we, I didn't say Lumumba specifically, good brother. What I'm saying is, as a person who was there, same thing with Busta Rhymes. Busta Rhymes is in the same boat. You absolutely Jamaican, proud to be a Jamaican, and he said his father told him it was the dumbest thing he could ever do. So again,
dumbest thing he could ever do as what?
To rap, to be involved with us.
Most parents feel that way.
No. Here's the difference, right? My mother told me, hey, you know what? Music is cool. Radio is cool. I want you to get your degree. Bro, I'm on a VH1 behind the music before the ink was dry on my record deals. Teddy Pendergrass, look it up when you got nothing better to do. The difference was, when it came down to it, my mother was more concerned about financial stability than she was me somehow moving away from my American heritage. That's the difference we're talking about here. So to bring up Big, like, did you know Big? Did you meet Big?
No, I did not.
You did not. So if he were here, Big would tell you, just like Miss Valletta told me, just like he told me, she wasn't really with it, Dave. You know what I'm saying? So like,
she wasn't really with what?
She wanted him to be some kind of engineer or have a trade, or she was not with him. Hang on, wait. Because she, again, what had happened, especially when Big's parents were here, they wound up in Bed-Stuy. Law from Bedford-Stuyvesant, so the lawless one. Yeah, they were surrounded by us. And every day, Miss Valletta feared for her life. And one of those fears came true when she found him with booger sugar. You understand what I'm saying? She did not want him to be a part of that, because to her, him selling street pharmaceuticals was tantamount to him rapping. So when he was rapping, it was just 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other for Miss Valletta. That's what I'm saying. So yeah, he's ethnically Jamaican, but he's still he's ethnically Jamaican, but he's still
their child to sell drugs. Most parents don't want that. Well,
you're burying half of my point. You're burying half of my point.
No,
you're burying half of my point.
A reasonable parent would not want their child to engage in the selling of street pharmaceuticals. That has nothing to do with ethnicity.
You're burying the other half of my argument.
When I asked you, you didn't give it to me. So just move forward. Let me ask you this question.
Sure.
What are you familiar with Nigressen's theory?
No, educate me. I'm fascinated.
Okay, Nigressen's theory is the coined by William Cross Jr. in 1971, the concept of developing a Black identity, right? It literally means in French, becoming Black. So I just want to know if you were familiar with the concept of Nigressen's theory, since we were talking about identity. But since you aren't aware, we could move forward. Sure. Question: can you be pro-Black and pro-America?
You're damn right. Those things are not mutually exclusive. I love my country. That ain't got nothing to do with being patriotic. Does not reject the fact that America owes foundational Black Americans a debt. I love my homeland. As a matter of fact, my ancestors made it possible for all of the people who identify throughout the diaspora who come over here to benefit. We are the reason that America is even more American than it's ever been. I love my country. As flawed as she is, this is my homeland. So why would anybody think that those things are diametrically opposed?
Well, I would give an example.
Sure.
Are you familiar with Dr. James Cone, coined the term Black liberation theology? Right. So he has a book, Malcolm and Martin, America, A Dream or a Nightmare. In the introduction of the book, pages 3 through 18, he provides a historiographic overview of the history of integrationism in Black America and the history of Black nationalism in Black America. And in the text, he states that for Black nationalists, and I don't know if you identify as a Black nationalist, he says the concept of being pro-Black and pro-America is antithetical because America isn't for Blacks, so why would Blacks be for America? And so then, of course, he gives a long history of Black nationalism.
Certainly, I'm familiar. So then my question is, where did he live?
Who?
Where did he live?
James Cone, Dr. James Cone.
Mm-hmm.
He lived in the United States.
So if it was that bad, and we're talking about a person, we're not talking about somebody who's covering a manhole with a 40 ounce in a brown paper bag asking for change. If it was that bad, he had the means and the resources. Why didn't he leave?
Well, you have to ask him that question.
Exactly. So the thing of it is,
hold on. Unfortunately, he's deceased now.
He's gone.
What we do know is that there are a number of individuals, particularly in the Black community, who feel a number of ways about Black America.
Certainly.
Being patriotic or being apathetic to America doesn't leaving America, irrespective of how one views America, that's not tantamount to okay. If you're apathetic to United States of America, then you should get the French toast out of Dodge, right? You would have to
argument. That's a real good Kevin Samuels reference. I like that. But I want to be very, very clear to you. Okay, for me, and again, I don't answer for every foundational Black American, but for me as a foundational Black American, I'm not a guest in this country. My ancestors helped create its wealth, its culture, its military power, helped make it a superpower damn near overnight, helped with its democratic expansion, its music, its language, its labor, its movements, its religious expression, and the constitutional development. I point you to the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. Loving America does not mean pretending America has always loved us correctly. I still want my country to fulfill the promises it said in the Constitution, which wasn't written for me, but we all, you included, benefit from that Constitution and the fact that it is a living, breathing document. So that even if you don't like everything about America, and God knows I don't like everything about America, I have the right to say I don't like everything about America, and I also have the opportunity to do everything in my power to change it. I want and are completely on board with making sure the United States fulfills its promises, honors all of its obligations, and repair what its government deliberately did to damage my people. That's not anti-American. That's demanding institutional integrity.
Well, most individuals argue that if you take the position, you are being anti-American, but we know those individuals are white nationalists.
Again, white nationalists aren't my concern because they've always been amongst us. The same way Jesus said the poor will always be. Again, I'm not worried about what white nationalists do. I am a foundational Black American who has to tend to foundational Black American business. You've lived and traveled the world. When you go throughout the United States, you usually see a little Italy, a Chinatown. You don't hear Chinese Americans running around here talking about white nationalists. They're focused on them. I'm focused on my people.
I have.
Okay. Generally speaking, by and large.
Hold on. I lived in the Bay Area. The largest demographic groups are white, Latino, Asian, and Black. I lived in the area, and I actually had by happenstance was in community with many individuals in the Latino and Asian community because of my proximity to them working in higher education. And they would have these conversations.
Mm-hmm. But guess what? You know what they have? A Chinatown, because they're focused on them first. That is the only argument I'm making. And you know where they're doing it? Here in the United States. You know why they're doing it? Because of the Constitution of the United States. You know why they're doing it? Because of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. You know why they're doing it? Because they understand the importance of making sure they take care of their business first before worrying about the white nationalists. Yes, it's a problem.
Well, actually, what we tend to find is they do both. They address internal issues.
You're saying the same thing.
Issues as well.
You're saying.
Well, no, you said they do. You said they do one and don't worry about the other.
That's not what I said. I said they do it. No. What I said was they put their people first, and they're not worried about that primarily. Let me be clear. No.
I never claimed that they were worried about that primarily.
No. But what I'm saying is, for the sake of this conversation, I understand white nationalism existed. It has always existed. You can go as far back as Manifest Destiny if you like. But at the end of the day, the truth of the matter is, whether the same way Jesus said the poor will always be amongst you, there will always be some white folks who are trying to be a fly in your ointment. My main thing is we need to focus on nation building. We need to focus on making our communities better. We need to make sure that people who do not belong here are not exploiting ourselves. We need to make sure that we're not dealing with the Mm-hmm. Go ahead. You're interviewing me.
You mentioned people that don't belong here. What are the top 5 groups that have immigrated to the United States in the past 5 years?
I'm sure you'll tell me.
Are you aware?
No, let's say I'm not. Please educate the audience.
I'm seriously. Are you aware or not?
I am not.
Okay. All right. All right. Because and the reason why I ask that question because many individuals that identify as FBA make the argument that African and Caribbean immigrants are here taking resources from African Americans, but when you go into the Department of Homeland Security site, you find that the top 5 immigrant groups that have immigrated to the United States, none of them are from the West Indies or the African continent. So
certainly,
something to consider there.
What does that have to do with me? Well, again, let me be clear. I'm not responsible for what everybody else says. I'm only responsible for what I say. And for me, I don't care if you are Ukrainian. I don't care if you come from the UK and you're white. I don't care if you're Venezuelan. I don't care if you're Mexican. I don't care if you're Russian. If you are here illegally, you are in my way. Respectfully, to that point, are you familiar with the Barbara Jordan's report in the mid-90s?
Which report are we referring to?
I'm referring to the report that Bill Clinton hired Barbara Jordan, who worked in the government. Of course, she was an elected official, to commission to study what happens with an influx of illegal immigrants in this country and who would suffer. Barbara Jordan, and you can look this up. Please feel free to fact check me. I am a fallible human being, as demonstrated by today, even, right? Barbara Jordan told Bill Clinton to his face, testified before Congress, told absolutely everybody who would listen, was on C-SPAN and CNN more times than I can count, and said the number one group who is going to be affected by rampant illegal immigration would be Black Americans, or as you call them, African Americans, as I identify as a foundational Black American. And she was right. Do you know what Bill Clinton did with that report?
What did he do with it?
He threw it in the circular file, as my late grandfather would say. He threw it in the trash and kept on pushing.
Okay.
And what has happened some 30 years later? The same thing Bill Clinton said, and this is in no way in shape or form an endorsement, just a statement of fact. The same thing that happened and Bill Clinton wanted to do, but when he got the results he wasn't expecting, he buried, is the same thing that Barbara Jordan said, and it's the same thing that Donald Trump said. They're taking all the Black jobs, the low-skill, low-wage jobs that Black people would have if illegals weren't running rampant through our country. Right. If you look at a place like Chicago.
Do you know when the U.S. because I just can't let you monologue like a DC villain, but are you familiar when
I'm a Marvel guy, as you can tell. I'm a Marvel guy. I don't know what DC villains do.
Actually, so am I. Right. I'm looking for Very quickly, are you familiar with when the United States government started using immigrant labor, cheap immigrant labor?
Oh, shoot, this is American as apple pie.
Well, are you familiar when? What program and when this started?
No, but tell me. We're here to
The
learn.
Bracero program took place during World War II, where they were bringing illegal immigrants across the border, undocumented, purposely allowing them to work, of course, jobs that would support the war industry. So let me ask you this question. You mentioned Brian Donald on some previous episodes on your channel, and you had issues with him, right?
Let me be clear.
And you talked about the fact that, of course, I believe he is from Jamaican ancestry.
That's what he says.
Yes. And so you talked about the fact that he is a legislator who is creating policy, and that his views are antithetical to, of course, Black people in America. I think everyone would agree with that.
Certainly.
What are your views on the policy positions of Tim Scott?
Tim Scott of South Carolina, part of my ancestral home. Some are good, most are shit, respectfully.
Okay, could you specify what some of those policy positions are?
When he was trying to get more jobs in books, I can't remember the actual term of the bill. I thought that was okay, but Tim Scott, by and large, is not, to me, not a friend of Black people. And let me be clear.
So, I mean, I'm just saying, what policies has he created that you believe are adversarial to the Black community?
Oh, any policy that has blocked or it stands diametrically, somebody who is trying to run as, are we talking about Tim Scott or Byron Donalds? Because you asked me about Byron Donalds.
It's Tim Scott right now, but we could go back to Byron Donald as well.
Yeah. Tim Scott, to me, is more concerned with position. Tim Scott wanted to be vice president more than anything. So he's going to do whatever he thinks Trump wants him to do. The man, to me, is, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm trying to be respectful of your platform. I'm okay with opportunity zones. I'm a businessman. I'm an entrepreneur. I have several businesses I have interest in. For example, I'm streaming on one of my businesses right now. It's called Jaro Go. It is an app that is used so that Black people, it's a foundationally Black American owned app, and we do global business. And so we have it so that we don't have to do the things that we have to rely on YouTube for. Like I have to use words like unalived or S8 or all that. I don't have to do that on Jaro Go. So anything that's going to allow economic opportunity, I'm good with. Opportunity zones are good. The things about like the Road to Housing Act, which was bipartisan, I thought was good.
I'm asking specifically about policies that he has taken that are detrimental to the Black community. Policy positions that are detrimental.
Okay.
Byron Donald or Tim Scott.
Well, with Tim Scott, again, the school choice trick bag is problematic for me. And I'll tell you why. Because the people who can afford to put their kids in a school choice type of situation where they get vouchers, they don't need the vouchers in the first place. And the people who do don't either have the transportation or the financial means in order to do it. So while it sounds good on paper, in practice, it's hard to go. Both Tim Scott and Byron Donalds are big on that. Also,
so you say financial means to do what?
To get their kids. So for example, right, a lot of these folks who have these school choice situations, it's either busing, but busing has been cut tremendously, especially like here in Pennsylvania, and we're under a Democrat. But getting kids to schools that are safer or better equipped than neighborhood
higher achieving.
Yes, it's problematic. It sounds good on paper because when you look at the amount of money, and I'm the son, brother, and son, grandson, and father of teachers, being a teacher myself, but I didn't teach in K through 12. I taught them college level. You see the financial disparities that happen, but every kid in Pennsylvania, you're looking at about $30,000 per annum per kid in school, but that money doesn't reflect. I went to the worst high school in America statistically, Martin Luther King High School. I write about it. Have you read my book? My latest book, anyway, The Real Black Agenda. Have you read it yet? Okay. No. In that book, I outline what happened. to my school. It was literally ranked the worst school in America. We had metal detectors before damn near anybody else. We had Jamaican kids coming to school with machetes. We had foundational Black American kids coming in with semi-automatic weapons. It was a war zone. Have you ever seen the movie Lean on Me?
Of course.
The real Joe Clark came to the school, told us to keep on keeping on because he couldn't do nothing for us. That's how bad it was. But they still allocated, in those days, it was about 15, 20,000 per student, which is about 30K in today's money per student. But the school did not see any of that money. At least that money didn't roll down to the students.
So let me ask you a question.
So that's my issue with school choice, for example.
To address the issue of school choice and the fact that oftentimes parents do not have the resources to get the child to a school outside of their district. We're presuming the school will be outside of their district. What would you propose in terms of policy to address that issue?
I think number one, it should be based not only on whether or not they have the choice, but have the means to actually execute on that choice, right? Having somebody, for example, say choose between syphilis and gonorrhea is a zero-sum game. I'm talking about making sure that there are, because there's enough money. You okay, good brother?
Yeah, I'm good.
I got somebody
pull up. They gotta drop something off to me, so
pull up on me. But no, I want to make sure that people who need to take advantage of that educational choice can get their kids there. One of the big things that former Vice President Kamala Harris was running on when she called herself the top cop when she was in California was the whole truancy thing. And how there was a woman who was sick and she was locking people up. And then not only that.
But the question is, what policy would you create or propose?
I was getting there, but I'm just saying, I'm getting there. I gotta set the table before we eat. So what I'm saying is my policy is one, make sure that there are at least some type of public transportation program or some type of shared shuttle. Because with all the money they're making, that doesn't go into the coffers and become.
Give me 1 second.
Not a problem. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Hope you're doing well. While he's doing that, I can't pull up the super chats, but I want to read them. FU2, thank you for the $2 super chat. Say, you better thank a union member. Where were Dr. Bakari's grandparents born? I'll ask him when we get back. But
all right, what's up? My grandparents, what about them?
No, I was reading the super chats while you were going, just so we had something to do.
Okay.
Oh, you got dogs too. My dogs be going off.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. FU2 said, where were Dr. Bakari's grandparents born?
The United States of America.
There we go.
Georgia and North Carolina, to be specific.
Love that. So getting back to your situation, transportation. Right, to be provided, like we would have back in my day,
vouchers, but vouchers where they provide the funding for being able to take public trans.
Yeah, absolutely, because the money is there. But what's happened is nobody, and you know this, you might not know this, I can't assume, but there's no oversight, and the teachers unions, as a child of a woman and stepchild of a man who had to deal with the teachers union making all this money when the teachers went on strike, the money it's a slush fund. And it's not impossible for that to happen. I think give them the opportunity to actually take advantage of the opportunity, because giving somebody an opportunity to go to WrestleMania, but WrestleMania is in Saudi Arabia and they can't get a flight.
Right. So transportation.
Transportation vouchers. Also making sure.
Yeah, it's very clear. Transportation vouchers.
That wasn't the only thing, but okay, we'll stop there. That's fine.
What else?
We have a lot of our people who live in technology deserts. If you look in Tennessee, for example, what's the young man's name? He's got the big afro now. Oh gosh, I can see him clear as day. He, in his district, they built data centers. He had to sign off on those data centers, but instead of making sure that there was some quid pro quo, one of the main reasons that we fall behind when it comes to having children reading on grade level or having high mathematical computation skills is a lack of access to technology. When we had COVID, they gave out laptops. Now, of course, those laptops were hot trash truck juice, but the money was there in a pandemic, but there should be more, because when you look at, so for example, I live in the far northeast section of Philadelphia. These kids are their schools are baller.
Are you near Germantown?
I'm from Germantown. I live in the far northeast. Germantown is northwest Philadelphia.
Yes, I know it's northwest. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So
you're saying that you also want to create a policy that, one, addresses the issue of transportation, and you want there to be a policy that addresses access to technology.
Correct.
Okay. Very good.
Both of whom that can happen. So yeah.
Okay. Very good. So, what are your views on the policy positions of Wesley Hunt, John James, and Burgess Owens?
That's a good question. I don't know all of their policies. Is there something specific you'd like me to speak to?
Well, yeah, because these are Black members of Congress who have policy positions that are empathetical to the Black community. And so you mentioned Byron Donald, and I think you rightfully mentioned that he has policy positions that are detrimental to our community. And my question would be, there are a litany of other Black Congress members of Congress who have policy positions that are detrimental to the Black community.
Certainly, I didn't say Byron Donalds was a unicorn or a dodo bird. That's not the issue.
I never said that. I never said you said that. What I stated was, on your platform, you brought up Byron Donald, and that his policy positions were antithetical to the African American community, or the Black American community, or foundational Black American community.
Most certainly.
And so my issue of concern is, there are a number of other Black members of Congress who have policy positions that are antithetical to the community that you and I are part of.
Absolutely.
And so my concern would be, why aren't you aware of their policy positions and how detrimental they are, but you're only knowledgeable of the individual who isn't an African American? I would think that if you have I would think that if you have an issue with the well-being of your community, you will be knowledgeable of all of the policy positions of individuals who are in positions to make legislation that adversely affect us as a community.
Yeah, absolutely. You're 100% right. Let me be clear. Sometimes I give one example because I don't have time in an audience to go through all that. Again, there's certain things that I like about Wesley Hunt, because he, he's an example of a really what happens when a serviceman gets in power, but that doesn't mean I like everything he does. Jasmine Crockett walked around before she got redistricted, running around trying to push immigration and fighting for immigrations and for LGBT, everybody before Black people, but she gives great speeches talking about this, that, and the third. To me, I am of the mind, regardless of left wing or right wing, it's the same bird. And my issue with my people is that we focus so much on personality that we miss out on policy. And the other part of that is the same way I criticized Byron Donalds, I have criticized Kamala Harris, I have criticized, Jasmine Crockett, I've criticized AOC, I've criticized Bernie Sanders. I said Bernie Sanders.
So let me ask you this question. When you criticize AOC, Jasmine Crockett, are you criticizing them based on what?
I'm criticizing based on the fact that they come into Black spaces when it's time to get reelected. But for example, I used to work in Dallas, Fort Worth. I don't know how much you know about my career, but I've lived in 34 cities in 19 states, right? Okay. And I lived in the Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex for a very long time. I worked and did.
Shout out to the DFW.
Shout out to the DFW. Shout out to all my people over at K104. Shout out to everybody over at Urban One. I was at the beat, and I used to go to South Dallas a lot. South Dallas is Dallas's answer to North Philly. It's a slum. You know whose district that is? It's Jasmine Crockett's. But she's running over here, worrying about this and worrying about Venezuelan migrants and worrying about this group and that group. But her constituents are suffering.
So do you think the issue is policy-based, ideologically based? What specifically do you think is the issue?
The issue is when you have all of this time to give speeches, you don't have time to have policy. Jasmine Crockett had the highest record of missing out on votes that are impacting her constituents, which is one of the main reasons that she lost. And that's why she had to flip and try to run for Senate. But the DNC said, no, boo-boo cakes, that's not going to fly. I am an equal opportunity smoke giver. It's not just Byron Donald. So I'm not a person you can do whataboutism with.
Right. Well, no, it's not a whataboutism. That's not what's going on. My issue was that when you attack Byron Donald.
Did I attack him? How did I attack him?
I'm going to tell you why. Well, he's no friend of mine. You can attack him all you want. That's immaterial.
No, but how did I
That
attack him?
when you critiqued him, you cited his ancestry rather than ideology. Because I would argue ideology is what's pushing his policy positions, not his ancestry.
No. See, this is where you and I, we've got a long email thread, and in that email thread, you said that we're going to make sure that we stay on the facts. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
Did you watch his entire Breakfast Club interview?
I watched half of it.
So you watched half of it. So you did not watch the whole thing. So that answer is no. In that Breakfast Club interview, he made it very abundantly clear that he was Jamaican. That is a fact. You can watch the whole thing. He said that. Okay. Number two, hold on, wait. You can let me know my plane. Okay. Number two, Byron Donalds said that he was against reparations for my people.
Yes.
That when you're standing diametrically opposed to an injury, again, you asked me why I talked to
Republicans in Congress are opposed to reparations.
100%.
So
I'm not a Republican, brother. Hold on. I'm making a point, and you have to let me make my point. Byron Donalds got on one of the biggest platforms in Black America and basically said, I'm Jamaican and everybody can't benefit from that. So I'm not with that. I don't believe in reparations, so on and so forth. I'm paraphrasing. That's why I said basically said. I'm not a stenographer. I'm a human being. And by the way, you only saw half of that interview.
Yes.
Okay. So again, let's be clear. If somebody asked me a specific question when it comes to Byron Donalds and how I felt about what he said on the Breakfast Club, I'm going to address that. I'm going to address that because that's a specific issue at that specific time. That does not mean that I have a personal gripe with him because he's Jamaican. Nothing about me is. I did no. I did not say that you did. Let me be clear. Every time I say something that does. No. I didn't say you insinuated it, did I? I'm not going to argue points I didn't say. I'm stating for the record because you and I are in front of an audience, and that audience needs to understand where I stand. And where I stand is this: there is a complete difference between saying, "Hey, I don't like what you said," based upon the way you presented it, based upon your lineage and how you can't stand to benefit from that. But that does not mean that everybody else who's against reparations is not an enemy of foundational Black American progress for reparations. Let me be clear. All of them. I don't care if you're a Republican. I'm a conservative. I'm not a Republican.
What are your views on Burgess Owens' rejection of reparations?
What was his rejection of reparations, to be specific?
He stated that he called the reparations an impractical and non-starter. He ordered that they promote a victim mindset rather than individual empowerment. He believed that the government shouldn't be given handouts.
The government has been given handouts as long as the government has been the government. He didn't say that historically speaking, when we're talking about Japanese internment victims. He didn't say any of that when we spent all of that money to fix Notre Dame. Last I checked, that hunchback was not an American. Every time I turn around. So that's neither here nor there. I'm against anybody who is against reparations.
Burgess Owens' rejection of reparations is based on what?
He thinks it's a handout. He thinks it's welfare. And
it's based on his political ideology.
Certainly. And
okay. So
I don't care whether it's your ideology, whether it's Santa Claus, whether it's the man on the moon, or it's little teeny tiny Ewoks on Tatooine.
Can you tell me the difference between? Can you differentiate between the term organic and inorganic Black conservative? Do you know the difference?
I do not. Why don't you educate me?
Okay, that's quite all right.
No. Wait. This is a place where we're trying to learn. Don't just bring up something and then just move on.
Well,
Take the time to educate me.
Once again,
I want to know. I'm asking you.
Well,
so let me know.
Organic Black conservative is someone who organically internally believes that conservative values will benefit the Black community socially, politically, economically. An inorganic Black conservative is someone who takes on conservative talking points because they're being paid by white special interest groups to do so.
And the point was, what made you want to ask?
I wanted to know if you were familiar with the.
Well, let me put it to you this way. I'm very organic. Now, if you can find somebody who paid me for my beliefs, I would love to see that check.
I wanted to know.
Then why did you bring it up? Then why did you bring it up? Nobody just randomly asked a question. You have a PhD, bro. Come on.
I just told you because I wanted to know if you were familiar with the term. Just like I asked you, were you familiar with the term digressing theory?
Right.
I
Okay.
wanted to know if
Well,
you were familiar with the concept.
no,
Can you
I
define the
wasn't familiar
term?
with the concept.
Okay. Can you define the term diaspora?
I thought the diaspora was basically a grouping of people who surround one particular ideology when it comes to oneness because we have a shared cultural ancestry.
That's not the definition of the term diaspora.
Okay, so what is
Diaspora,
the
by
term?
definition, is a population living outside its homeland.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was a claim you made on your platform that was averse to facts. Let me ask you this question, and this is just some comments that you made when you was interviewing that guy on your platform, the guy from Haiti. What is this? You
What
said
guy
that
from Haiti?
I'm sorry.
There's been like about 4 or 5 guys from Haiti. Can you be specific?
Okay, well he was overweight. That's all. That's the only description.
Oh, okay. I wasn't interviewing him. He came up because he told me that FBA was a cult and it's xenophobic and so on and so forth. And I had to give him an education.
Okay. What is the square mileage of the city of Philadelphia?
Oh no. We're not doing that. Because I know what you're trying to do, and that's really funny. Because I've already clarified that. No. Let me go there. Because what you're going to say is on your platform, you said Haiti, Philadelphia is bigger than Haiti, and what I meant to say, because I was speaking.
No, you said that they were roughly the same size.
Any way you slice it, what I meant to say, and I've already clarified this on many interviews and on my platform several times, that I meant to say the state of Pennsylvania, which is much bigger than Haiti. But I was speaking passionately by somebody who kept cutting me off and telling me I was all these things that I wasn't. So I misspoke because guess what? I know it looks like it, but there's no stigmata here, which means I don't walk on water and heal palsy children. I misspoke and I corrected it immediately.
You don't have to try to play the victim. So let me ask you this question.
I'm not playing the victim at all, bro. I'm great. How are you?
You mentioned on your platform, you talked about Wyclef Jean being barred from running for president.
Correct.
Right. And what was the reason that you gave?
They said he couldn't.
You said the reason why was because he wasn't born in Haiti.
No, but he was born in Haiti, and again, I corrected that too. And he came here when he was 9. Okay. Yes, anyway, you slice it. Anyway, you slice it. They still rejected him.
Right,
and that is his homeland.
And what was the reason?
Because he didn't live there, so he couldn't do it, or something along those lines. If I'm not mistaken.
Per the Constitution, you have to have 5 years of consecutive residency in the country in order to run for president.
Okay.
So
anyway, you slice it. What I'm saying is, at least he had sense enough to try to fix his native homeland, as opposed to sit up here latching on to ours, and then talking about how everything. And this is the thing that becomes very bothersome. When people will talk about what foundational Black Americans are doing and what they need to do when their ancestral homeland is in ruins for a myriad of reasons, it's kind of
Western imperialism.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
guilty. Yeah, they absolutely. Western imperialism affects all of us. That part is absolutely indiscriminate.
However, that's the same reason why our communities look the way they do.
That's part of it. The other part of it is we have given up. Because I call balls and strikes. We have given up access to our culture. We have sold our style. We have sold ourselves out to allow the lowest common denominator of people to represent us. That's why somebody like Young Miami, who is backed by Lucian Grange and other individuals, can have the #1 song of the summer, while somebody like I don't know, India Ari gets told she's old, she's washed up, she's over the hill. This is where we are in society. So there's a lot.
I would argue that's due to who actually controls and runs hip hop.
I already make that argument because I worked in the industry for 30 years.
So let me ask you this question. In the past, you've argued that you talked about you're adverse to Pan-Africanism.
Did I say I was adverse? I don't ever remember saying that. Please pull that tape.
Well, you've made an argument stating that Pan-Africanism was not. Let me make sure I make the right quote. You stated that you stated on this was on the interview, well, not interview, but the conversation you had with the overweight brother from Haiti, that Pan-Africanism, you hadn't seen Pan-Africanism in practice working on the continent. One of the things that you brought up was you argued, one of the arguments that you made was the concept of that people are debating over who has the best jollof rice. As an example of a failure of Pan-Africanism on the continent.
Are you serious right now?
I mean, this is what you said.
You do realize that I'm a humorist, and sometimes I provide levity. Joel off is something that people can understand.
You can't overtalk me on my platform. We're not going to do that.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Humorist or not, this is the argument you made while having a serious conversation about Pan-Africanism. I would argue that said debates are innocuous and analogous to arguing which communities had the best barbecue, Kansas City or Memphis, or which region produces the best hip hop. Are you able to share with me when Pan-Africanism began?
Are you able to share with me when Pan-Africanism began? You're the PhD in Pan-Africanism. Like, I mean, educate me.
My degree is not in Pan-Africanism. But
again, humor. Please educate me. There's certain things, and we've already established this. We've got.
Sorry, there's a simple yes or no.
No. Now educate me. Because what does that have to do with what I said? I'm sorry?
Are you familiar with who coined the term?
No, please tell me.
Okay. Are you familiar with what is the first written Pan-Africanist manifesto?
Are we just going to sit up here and play pop quiz?
I'm asking you questions. You can either answer them or not.
Okay, can you tell me why you're all of a sudden so hostile?
I'm not hostile, sir.
Your tone is completely changed.
And I'm simply
the answer is no.
Okay,
the answer is no.
And the reason why I'm asking these questions is because typically when an individual is going to critique an issue, a theory, an ideology, etc., and you know this because you said that you've been a professor at Temple University.
No, I didn't say it. It's a fact.
Right. You have to. Yes, you are.
It's verifiable.
At Temple University, you have to show that you have a working knowledge of the subject matter before you engage in critiquing or seeking to address a gap in the literature or concepts or practices or ideas. This is why I asked the question.
Mm-hmm.
So is that simple? Are you familiar with some of the core tenets of Pan-Africanism?
As far as I'm trying to understand what you're asking.
Core tenets of the ideology and movement.
All right. So from what I understand, right, Pan-Africanism is a concept where people throughout the diaspora, meaning people who are not as what you would call living in their homeland, are cooperating in order to make sure that Pan-African, that they're contributing to the growth and development of Africa.
No, it doesn't have to be Africa. It's about contributing to the growth and development of Black people anywhere in the world. You could be in Seoul, Korea. You don't have to be in Africa. You could be in Botswana. You could be in Moscow. Right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. It's about working together in whatever way you can to better our lives.
Okay. Here's why I'm confused then. Because the African Union has how many member states at this point?
54.
I thought it was 55.
But South Sudan would make 55.
Okay, cool. So my whole thing is, doesn't the African Union website even say that their main goal is to make sure that it's contributing to continental development? By continental development, does that not mean Africa?
Yes, the African Union is a international continental organization. The African Union is an aspect of Pan-Africanism, but it's not the end-all be-all of Pan-Africanism.
Okay, awesome.
And I would give some examples of Pan-Africanism in practice. One would be the Sahel Alliance. Right. Another example of Pan-Africanism practice would be African nations providing political asylum to African American activists. That would be an example of Pan-Africanism, in which they paid their living expenses while they were in political asylum. Right? Kwame Ture, born Stokely Carmichael, born in Trinidad and Tobago, Bronx, New York, raised, Howard University educated. Later became considered the prime minister of Black America. He ended up moving to Guinea due to finding out he was going to be assassinated due to the machinations of FBI and COINTELPRO. Another example of Pan-Africanism in practice would be Winnie Mandela visiting Stanley Tooker Williams while he was on death row and advocating for his clemency to Governor Schwarzenegger. Those would be examples of Pan-Africanism in practice.
But that's for individuality. What I'm talking about is, right? So when we look at the African Union, and
I provided some that was individual based, and I provided some that were governmental. A political asylum from African American activists by different nations is an example of governmental Pan-Africanism.
Can you do me a favor? Can you give me 3 institutional outcomes that modern Pan-Africanism has produced specifically for foundational Black Americans? And let's just be reasonable. In my lifetime, let's say 25 years.
Let's see here. You said 25 years.
In the past 25 years that have benefited foundational Black Americans as a whole, not individuals. That has benefited foundational Black Americans in the last 25 years. I'm talking about one.
Well, one would be the nation state of Libya providing a $5 million loan to the Nation of Islam, interest-free $5 million loan to the Nation of Islam.
Didn't the government block that? And
no.
That's oh, I could have swore that. Oh no, that was the $1 billion check. My bad. Go ahead.
Yeah.
And how did that benefit foundational Black Americans?
Well, the Nation of Islam was primarily made up of African Americans.
That's one group. I said all something that no. All that, because I love the Nation of Islam. I have a lot of love for the minister. When Fox pulled out of covering his talk during the 2020 pandemic, when Revolt pulled out of covering his talk during the 2020 pandemic, it was Business Bully TV that simulcasted it. So I got nothing but love for the Nation of Islam. Revolt and Fox Soul.
I remember that.
I was there. Like it was on my platform. What I'm saying is, another example. Okay, but no, let's stay there. No, we let's not move on. Hold on, wait. Let's not move because we have to be clear. We can't just move the goalpost. What I said was to benefit foundational Black American. You're talking about a subset of a subset of a subset of a subset. Well, I'm talking about foundational Black Americans. Okay, because that one is not an example.
Another example would be the Baraka School in Kenya providing free education and transportation, housing for African American at-risk youth in Baltimore to go to school at the Baraka School in Kenya. Of course, Baraka means blessing in Kiswahili.
Of course. Here's the thing, though. Baltimore is one area. It's one teeny tiny area. I'm talking about how it has benefited all. No. Apparently, I'm not being clear on the question. The question I'm asking you is how has Pan-Africanism, by and large, benefited all of foundational Black Americans, not a small subset of a religious group or not one particular group of at-risk kids who all of them damn near are at risk because none of them are reading on grade level. I'm talking about the entirety of foundational Black Americans. Have they benefited? Because from what I'm hearing for the most part are small little individual things. And you just said earlier on in our conversation that exceptions don't disprove the rule. So I'm trying to figure out exactly what they have done where we can go, wow, everybody need to be like Dr. Umar, and we need to start talking about Pan-Africanism because, man, we are benefiting.
I don't think anyone should be like Dr. Umar Johnson.
Is he not the Prince of Pan-Africanism?
No.
I haven't heard any Pan-African yet reject this man.
He's a buffoon. Well, actually, you're hearing one now, and if there are several Pan-Africanists that reject him. One would be Bequaline Network. The other would be Sister Farida, who's from Togo. There are, if you are familiar with Pan-Africanists, every serious Pan-Africanist I know rejects this guy and views him as a buffoon who simply uses Pan-Africanism to promote itself.
So then my question is, here's the question. How do you let somebody run rampant for 2 decades under your flag of Pan-Africanism?
Well, I can't let somebody.
Not you individually. I'm just talking about.
He's an individual. We live in the United States of America. He can say and do whatever he wants.
But aren't you saying, but aren't we supposed to be protecting our people? Because he's taking advantage of millions of Black people who have donated millions of dollars to this man.
He's a private citizen, just like the
operating as a Pan-African, and then putting himself up as a prince. I have yet to see I've not seen the African Union or any Pan-Africanist of note get together like a Ben Crump press conference and say, we absolutely reject Dr. Umar. We absolutely reject what he stands for. That is not Pan-Africanism. He should be shamed. We should sue him for using the term civilly.
So one, you can't sue somebody for using the term. That's not possible. You can't sue somebody for using the term.
Go ahead and call yourself the business bully and watch how false that becomes.
Well, once again, we were talking about an ideology. That is your brand. The business bully is a brand that.
And so is the Prince of Pan-Africanism. So is the Prince of Pan-Africanism. Right. And that brand, would you? But no. But what I'm saying is,
don't cut me off. You can't sue him for calling himself the Prince of Pan-Africanism. Just like you couldn't sue Notorious B.I.G. for calling himself the Black Frank White. That's nonsensical.
Oh, but he got sued for being called Biggie Smalls.
What I can say is that individuals who
we're just going to skip over what I just said. We're just going to skip over what I just said. Why? Because it's a fact. Because what I just said was a fact. I just want you to acknowledge that that was a fact. That just completely
once again, don't cut me off. Don't cut me off.
Okay.
Once again, this is my platform. Individuals who are serious about Pan-Africanism focus on doing the work. Individuals on the continent don't take Umar serious. Pan-Africans on the continent, the Caribbean, don't take him serious. I know that because I'm in community with them. We have more important things to do rather than holding a press conference about a buffoon. This is a reality. And I give you another example. There are a lot of individuals who, kind of take umbrage with Pan-Africanism. They say, well, listen, I have an issue with the fact that a lot of times, a lot of Pan-Africans, they're on this cream of the sister type thing, cream of the shea butter. They don't want to hold Black women accountable. And I said, I've seen that, but I said, I'm one that do hold our sisters accountable, right? So just because you haven't seen something doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Okay, so back to the thing, because I think we have to really make sure that we're clear on something. You said you can't sue somebody for saying something because Biggie called himself Frank White, and the thing of it is, you never met the man. But to be clear, the reason he's called do you know why he's called the Notorious Big?
Please make me aware.
Yeah, the reason he is called the Notorious Big is because he, Sean Combs, and Bad Boy Entertainment were sued behind the usage of the term Biggie Smalls, which was a copyrighted term from the movie Uptown Saturday Night. The same way the same way Ricky Rose is now Ricky Rose as opposed to being called Rick Ross, because he is infringing and doing damage to the reputation of Freeway Ricky Ross. So by your logic, you can be sued if in fact you are doing damage to somebody else's brand, or it's even too close. Wait. We're not cutting people off.
Well, it's my platform. I can cut somebody if I want to.
Oh, so but that's not fair. That's not really fair, especially when I just
it's my platform, because
now it's my party and you'll cry if you want to.
You're making a false equivalency.
No, I'm not. Right? You use the example of Biggie. You literally use the example of Biggie.
The rapper Common used to be called Common Sense. He was sued because there was another group that used the term.
Correct. Right? So which damaged their reputation. Yes.
No one else has called himself the Prince of Pan-Africanism. That's not a
But Pan-Africanism is any way you slice it. What he is doing is not doing you any favors. Would we agree on that? Because you said he was a buffoon, right?
Pan-Africanism.
I'm sorry, what?
So there's nothing to sue over. This is a nonsensical argument.
It's not a nonsensical argument. It really isn't. If you, the thing of it is,
just like you have preachers who are Christians who go out sexually abusing children. You can't sue the person because they call themselves a pastor and they're doing things that are nefarious to little kids.
Yeah, because there's sanctions in place to sanction them. They get fired. They get put in jail. At the end of the day, again, they committed a crime. So but you can again. No, I'm not moving the goalposts. You can sue somebody civilly. Everything I'm talking about is a civil suit.
You can't sue somebody for libel or defamation for calling themselves something.
Who said anything about libel or defamation? That never came out of my mouth. If we use two ears and one mouth,
you can't sue them.
You can sue him because what he no. It's not again. Are you? This is what I do. This is the part I do. That's why I'm called the business bully. I'm not called Dr. Bully.
What can you sue the person for?
You can sue them for damage to your reputation. You can sue them because I'll give you an example. There was a time. Do you know who that is, right?
Who?
On my wall, right there. You know who that is, right?
I can't see it.
Oh, that's Killmonger.
Okay.
That's Killmonger, right? Killmonger is a character in Black Panther. Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. Stan Lee came up with Black Panther about a year before the Black Panther started, and when the Black Panther started gaining popularity, they changed the name to Brown Leopard for a while. Google it. It's a funny thing. Whenever there's something that could damage your reputation, you can sue or you can make a change. The same thing with Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel used to be owned by DC. They call him Shazam now. It's one of the reasons that Marvel Comics is called Marvel Comics. There are plenty of instances, and I'm talking civilly. I said nothing about defamation.
These things have been copyrighted.
Regardless of if they're copyrighted or not. Dave Anderson isn't copyrighted, but if somebody's walking around calling themselves Dave Anderson, I've had a situation, literally, there was a guy who was talking about radio. my industry at the time and saying things that people were attributing to me. I sued him not because he committed a crime. I sued him because what he was doing was damaging my reputation.
Absolutely.
You said Dr. Umar is a wait. You said Dr. Umar is a buffoon. I said, how come y'all haven't publicly sanctioned him? Which you can do.
Reputation, not mine.
He's damaging. He's not your reputation, but he's damaging the cause of Pan-Africanism because we look at Pan-Africanism as a Philadelphian. No. But I'm not talking. I'm making
damaging the cause of an ideology. That's nonsensical.
Okay, so you're telling me that
you cannot file a lawsuit and not expect it to move forward in the court for damaging the cause of an ideology and a goal of a movement. You can't do that. That's nonsense. So once again, this is the argument that you're making that is nonsensical. So we're going to move on.
I'm only making that argument because you made the argument about Biggie Smalls and you were factually incorrect. That's all. But let's move on. Again,
because of a copyright issue. That's why
you said he can't be sued for. You said no. You're moving the goalposts. You said he can't be sued for calling himself the Black Frank White, and he got sued because of the
Biggie Smalls because it was a copyright issue. You can't sue somebody because they're damaging the reputation of an ideology.
You can sue somebody still again.
Those are two separate issues. So I tell you,
if you can prove harm, you can. But go ahead.
Once again, I appreciate you.
Is Pan-Africanism worth protecting?
Well, the protection is in doing the work.
Okay.
That's where the protection is. The protection is in doing the work.
And if somebody is infringing on your ability to do that work because they are damaging your reputation, do you think he's an asset or a liability to the cause of Pan-Africanism? He's
a liability to himself.
Thank you.
Not to Pan-Africanism. I said to himself, not to Pan-Africanism.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that, and I'm being intellectually honest. And the reason why is because nothing he said or done has inhibited me from doing the work that I do throughout the world, globally.
And what is that specifically? Can you talk about what that work is and how that work has benefited foundational Black Americans wholly right now? How are we better off from that work?
One of the things that I've been involved in is the West Dayton Youth Task Force. That we created a Juma Moshi Shule, which is, of course, an African-centered Saturday school to help children learn from an African-centered perspective, addressing reading, writing, and arithmetic. Of course, there's a Black history involved, and of course, we even help students intellectually in developing the ability, concentration, critical thinking by having a chess program as well. Another example, I worked with an organization in Columbus that actually had a year-long African-centered chess program for adolescents and preteens. My son and daughter were part of that program as well. Was part of actually successfully helping a political prisoner be released in Sierra Leone, right? We also have the Africana Elders Council here in Dayton, Ohio, the Cincinnati Pan-African organization, where we organize, like individuals pay dues and we're able to use that money to actually address the material needs of the Black community in Dayton and Cincinnati. One example is providing clothing and food to homeless people, the Black homeless in the Southwest Ohio area. So these are just some examples of some of the things that I'm able to do in the Black community. I even also do a Black Fit Club for free with, of course, Black people, because we know one of the biggest issues we face oftentimes is hypertension, high blood pressure, diabetes. We're addressing issues, preventative health issues, right? So focusing on health, right? So these are just some examples. I do free tutoring as well. So truly giving back to the community, irrespective of one's ethnicity or nationality or geographical place of origin.
Okay. So I'm still trying to find out, when it comes to foundational Black Americans by and large, what are the outcomes that have affected all foundational Black Americans from Pan-Africanism?
Well, one example would be the passing of the Civil Rights Act, Voting Rights Act, Fair Housing Act. We do know that there was documentation to show that there were African diplomats who complained vociferously at the state level to the State Department about the treatment of Black people in America. This caused
was that 25? Is that within 25 years? Because
can I answer the question?
Because that's not 25 years. But go ahead.
Answer the question. And as a result, we do know that part of the passing of these laws was due to, of course, the civil rights movement, African Americans advocating for, of course,
foundational Black Americans rights. Advocating for ourselves. Yes,
but we also know that there was a global aspect as well, and that would be one. I actually have a copy of the U.S. cable that was sent talking about, hey, this is causing us an issue abroad, particularly as it was during the height of the Cold War. So that would be an example as well. Or another example would be.
So wait. So you're saying Pan-Africanism did that for us, or did we do that for ourselves with cooperative help?
What I'm saying is that
because I'm talking about what Pan-African, not a coalition, what Pan-Africanism did for foundational Black Americans in the past 25 years.
By definition, Pan-Africanism has to be the cooperation of two groups working together, right? This is something that took place on both ends, internally and externally, to bring about the passing of these laws.
Who did the heavy lifting? Was it foundational Black Americans, or was it global
African Americans? Did heavy lifting.
I'm talking about something that Pan-Africans have done to specifically over the past 25 years, meaning less time than my oldest daughter has been alive, who is 27 years old, that has benefited all foundational Black Americans. And I'm talking institutions, I'm talking actual measurable results, not a fit program here, I'm talking about something that benefits all of us.
One example would be in higher education, the creation of Black culture centers.
How does that benefit all foundational Black Americans?
I'm so glad that you asked. Well, number one, the overarching underlying ideological premise of Black culture centers, I can say this because my dissertation was on Black culture centers, was Pan-Africanism, right? We know that as a result of the passing of civil rights legislation, it was seen by many in the civil rights movement as a watershed moment that now Black students were able to attend predominantly white institutions. However, when these Black students attended these institutions, they were facing institutional racism, bullying, not only from students, but also even campus police, and of course, discrimination from professors and staff. We also know that predominantly white institutions serve typically as what? On a macro level, as white cultural centers. So as a result, and this goes to what the work that was being done at San Francisco State University that created the first Black Studies program and then led to the proliferation of Black culture centers. Black culture centers were created due to the struggle that took place at San Francisco State University. So that would be an example of something that actually benefits students, because Black culture centers have three goals. It provides a home away from home. It helps students develop a healthy racial identity to, of course, push back and disabuse it students who have been indoctrinated by the miseducation of K through 12 compulsory education. And then last but not least, recruit, graduate, and of course, educate. So those are three examples. That's an example of the role Pan-Africanism played in helping successfully create, of course, institutions that benefit African Americans here in the United States of America.
So do all of us go to colleges? Do all of us go to PWIs? I'm talking about something that benefits all of us, not a small speck of us. Black cultural centers.
Hold on. The majority of Black college students attend predominantly white institutions. The overwhelming
But that's still a section. That's not all of foundational Black Americans.
Again, the overwhelming majority attend predominantly white institutions.
I'm so I'm
so
understanding.
That would be an example.
Yeah, not really here for that. Because that's not helping Black. What I'm saying to you is,
well, it does help. I've been the director of a Black culture center. It does help Black students. It does help them because one of the
we're talking about Black students. I said foundational Black Americans all over.
One of the things that it does, it provides jobs. That's one of the major issues. One of the major benefits is economic stability, so students they don't have to drop out of school.
But we're at a 6.6 unemployment rate in Black Americans right now, so it's not really doing.
And I gave you an answer.
Yeah, it's just not a complete answer, and it doesn't go to you said employment. So again, if our employment is higher, damn near double white Americans, it's not working to help us overall.
It helps the people who are in school.
People are in school is would you agree that's a section, right? That's not all of us. I'm talking about all of us.
Right. Well, can you give me an example
because
of FBA doing something that helps all of us?
Absolutely, I certainly can.
Institutions or policies that have been built?
Absolutely, I can. Why wouldn't I be able to? It's very simple. Foundational Black Americans have made it possible in the past 25 years for us to, again, expand with fiber optics, expand with cellular use, expand with medical.
Give me a specific example.
Okay, so when we look at the way GPS, for example, does that not qualify as something that benefits all of us? Does that not
benefit us economically or politically or socially? It just helps us get somewhere better, quicker.
And so cultural centers are better than that? How?
Absolutely. I would tell you why, because one, it provides jobs, right? For
How many?
Students.
How many? How many jobs because of that?
Hold on. I'm gonna answer your question. It depends on the size and the level of funding the Black Culture Center has.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Right. The second issue is it helps students graduate. It helps students with the professional development. They're able to learn how to be a professional from a Black standpoint, rather than believing that they have to actually emulate white people in order to be professional. It helps students develop a healthy racial identity so they don't engage in self-defeating, self-destructive, and disempowering behavior. This is why I mentioned aggressance theory when we talk about Black identity. I would know this because this is my warehouse. My dissertation was on Black culture centers.
Okay.
So these are tangibles that Black culture centers provide in higher education. I would know,
but that's not helping absolutely all of us.
Neither is GPS.
Okay, let me put it to you another way.
But at least the examples I gave, I provide the example I provided actually brought about a tangible result. Right?
Let me ask you.
Go to the center, you can get a job. They're going to help you graduate. They're going to teach you how to be a professional. Right? That's a tangible result. GPS doesn't bring about a tangible result.
Okay. Let me ask you this. What is a benefit of Pan-Africanism that benefits foundational Black Americans that Pan-Africans don't benefit from?
I don't understand the question.
Certainly you do. What I'm asking is, because Pan-Africanism and everything that you talked about seems to be a one-way street, there's no tangible benefit for us.
Well, there's not a one-way street. I just gave you examples of Pan-Africanism not being a one-way street. I give you another example of Pan-Africanism that isn't a one-way street. That has nothing to do with African Americans, right? I give you an example. In Haiti, after the earthquake, the nation state of Senegal, this is Pan-Africanism at a governmental level.
Senegal?
Provided what? Funding and travel expenses for Haitian students to study in Haiti due to the earthquake devastating many of the schools and universities in Haiti. That would be an example of Pan-Africanism not being a one-way street.
Again, I'm talking about for foundational Black Americans. You're talking about Haitians.
I'm speaking globally. You said it was a one-way street. I just gave you an example, but not.
No, I'm saying no. I'm talking about for foundational Black Americans. What they did for Haiti is great. Again, Senegal let Akon convince everybody that Akon City was going to be something, and it's nothing. What I'm talking about
nothing to do with what I'm talking about.
You brought up Senegal. You moved the goalposts. I talked about FBAs, and you talked about Haitians. You talked about Senegalese people helping Haitians. I'm talking about us. I am talking about us.
You can't overtalk.
I did, but I'm gonna let you go ahead.
You can't overtalk me. As I said it before, Pan-Africanism is about the care and concern for all Black people.
So nothing for foundational Black Americans.
There's not just one subset. Right. I gave an example of the situation in Kenya. I talked about African countries providing political asylum for African American activists. That's an example.
Those are individuals, not all of us.
Right. But once again,
I'm waiting for an example for all of us.
Another example would be 6 African nations backing Malcolm X to go to the United Nations.
That's not in 25 years. Malcolm X died before I was born.
I'm talking about it not being one-sided.
I'm talking about to benefit us, because what I'm saying is everybody benefits. Every other group in the diaspora benefits from us.
Every other group in the diaspora does not benefit off of African Americans. That is just not true.
I'm not an African American. I'm a foundational Black American.
You haven't provided one example to substantiate.
13th, 14th, 15th amendments. So they do.
Well, hold on. Everybody benefits from that, not just members of the diaspora. And we just stated that the top 5 groups that immigrate to America aren't even Black people. So if you had a real issue with people benefiting off our back, you would be dealing with individuals from other countries, not from the Africa.
And I do, but we're not talking about that. I'm talking about how we benefit. No. We're talking
Afrophobia.
Not at all. I don't have Afrophobia. I'm not afraid of anybody throughout the diaspora. I do more business across the diaspora than you do, bro.
We're going to end the conversation because,
of course,
I can't have a conversation with somebody about a concept and idea that they don't know anything about. This is why
I can't have a conversation with somebody who's being intellectually disingenuous, and when you give them the actual thing.
This is why I asked you those introductory
questions. I got you a Shammy. I want to send.
This is why I asked him these introductory questions about Pan-Africanism. Right? This is why I did that. I asked introductory questions about the concept and idea of Pan-Africanism, because academically, if you're going to have a conversation or a critique of a particular issue, you have to show that you first have a working knowledge of the situation and of the issue. And he wasn't able to show that. Pan-Africanism is not about one particular group. right? Pan-Africanism is about working to help Black people wherever you are in the world, not just on the continent, not just in the Caribbean, not just in the United States, right? That's what it's about, right? When I asked him for an example of how what has been done, he talked about GPS that provides no tangible benefit, right? Socially, politically, economically. I give an example of Black culture centers because the underlying impetus of Black culture centers was what? Pan-Africanism. So I provided an example, and it provides tangible benefits. It helps students graduate. They have a home away from home. My research on Black culture centers, when I did my dissertation at Cleveland State University, there was a young lady who was an African-American who stated that she was going to drop out of school until she found that there was a Black culture center on campus. She couldn't go to an HBCU because it's far too expensive. And we know most Black students attend PWIs because what? We pay taxes, and these are public institutions. It's far cheaper to attend. So these are some of the issues, right? That it's very difficult to have a conversation with someone about a critique about an issue when they aren't actually knowledgeable of said issue, right? But I would argue, and I can say that because my research is on Black cultures, I've published in academic journals on the subject matter, that the creation of Black culture centers that provides not only home away from home, helps students develop of course, healthy racial identity, and then, of course, last but not least, helps recruit, educate, and graduate, and provide jobs for students is a tangible benefit for African Americans. Now, is anything that one does going to benefit an entire group of people? No, that's just nonsensical. That's not how things work, right? Now, unless there's a governmental policy that one creates, right? But once again, as I said it before, I ask these type of questions because these are talking points that I saw that he had on his platform, but he wasn't able to answer the question because he just wasn't knowledgeable of the information, right? When I talked about Black identity, anyone who's going to have a conversation about Black identity, someone who's in the academy would know you have to be knowledgeable of Nigression's theory. Right, when we talked about the concept of scholarships, right? He gave examples of Indians cosplaying as Black people. Then he says, well, what about Jamaicans? I said, well, the scholarships say Black. It's based on race, not based on ethnicity. Right, so I mean, it's like, what are we talking about here? That's just not the reality. These scholarships aren't allocated to African Americans. They're allocated to Black people, period. Right, and so I can say that because once again, this is my warehouse. This is what I do for a living. Right, it's what I do for a living. So it's unfortunate, but I figured that this would take place. So I figured that this type of thing would take place. Just for people in the comment, I'm not a Democrat. I never have been, never will be. I prefer the term African American, and once again, it's been around since the 1700s. We also know that African Americans are the only group that are identified based on color, not a geographic place of origin. Secondly, we know that the concept of, I would argue, only thing foundational to America, of course, is ethnic genocide, chattel enslavement of African people, and then, of course, settler colonialism. So something to consider there. But I said, once again, yes, this is live. But the issue, well, I cut him off because, once again, I don't do playing games, right? We don't do the playing the games here, right? It would be extremely difficult for any nation state or organization to create a policy that benefits every single Black person in a particular country simply because they aren't in the country, right? But there are concepts and ideas that allow individuals to, let's see here, we'll remove this. We'll remove this here as well. Okay. Okay, so I think I got that taken care of. To allow us to do what? Help Black people of a particular ethnic group, right? But the issue, Pan-Africanism, is about helping a particular ethnic group. Pan-Africanism is about what? Helping Black people, period, irrespective of one's ethnicity, geographic place of origin, so on and so forth, right? So these are one of the issues, right? When we talk about Pan-Africanism, the second issue here, and this is something that we tend to find, is that I would ask very, very sharp, direct questions, and he would just filibuster. He would just kind of talk in circles, right? He talks about Biggie Smalls, and I'm like, well, yeah, Biggie Smalls, of course, was sued because that was copyright infringement. You can't sue somebody simply because they are behaving in a manner that you believe is unbecoming of someone who takes on a particular title, right? If a pastor is behaving in a manner that is unbecoming or he's engaging in a behavior that will be indicative of moral turpitude, you can't sue the person, right? This is not a reality, right? It would be a frivolous lawsuit that would be dismissed, right? But once again, the issue here, I appreciate that. And, I'm gonna put the link in the chat so anybody could tap in and be part of the conversation if they want. The issue here, and like I said, I get that telling your guests you could interrupt them, but they couldn't. Well, no, it's not, child. It's my platform. This is just the way it works. And I don't allow people to make claims that are opposed to facts or make arguments that are inconsequential, right? We don't do red herrings on my platform. That's just not something that we do, right? I don't do red herrings. And so this is something that is very common, particularly with some people would argue in these YouTube streets, where individuals were engaged in red herrings, right? What's most important about Pan-Africanism is doing the work to benefit people. Right now, if you're asking for Pan-Africanism to help all 50 million African Americans, you'll be looking at from a policy position. You'll be looking for policy. Well, first and foremost, I'm an African American myself, and so like I said before, we don't do epithets on my platform. Right, we don't do epithets on my platform, so you're going to have to keep it moving. But you have to look at that on a policy issue, right? But there's no policy that any African nation, even African Union, could create that could benefit a group of people in a whole other country. That's just not a reality, right? That's just not how politics work. That's why I would ask him, okay, what policy? If you have an issue with the policy, what policy? And he just really couldn't answer the questions. And so, Brana, when your device is connected, okay, I'll bring you in. What's the word? Go ahead, Brana.
Doc, I personally think that you gave an excellent interview. Any serious person listening to that interview and who were to go over the details of that interview would know that, I think that you gave a very excellent interview, and you asked very credible questions. Some people are just here to troll, some people are just here to look for content. But I think that you gave an excellent interview. Some of the things that he would have referred to is he kept asking you the question, what has Pan-Africanism done in terms of benefiting Black Americans, or as he coined them, FBA people? But him being a proud American, and him standing up saying he loves his country, the question is, how has Americanism benefited all FBA people? I would have been curious to see. Very curious, how has Americanism benefited all FBA people? Another thing too is he keep on superimposing a small online group to 45 million Black people. Right. No, I mean, how could you do that? No one volunteered you all to say, well, we speak for all 45 million Black Americans. So the whole idea that is absurd. The third thing is, in terms of identity, the FBA movement only began in 2016. So you mean to tell me that you got an identity being online in 2016? What were you before that? These kinds of questions come in regards to Pan-Africanism and its practice in globally around the world. Right now in the country where I stay in, because of the communion with African leaders and Caribbean leaders, there are 300 Canadian citizens currently coming to the Bahamas to teach as a teacher program from Ghana.
Real quick, Brana, chat GKP, I need you to cam up before I bring you into the live. I have to make sure that you're not trolling. And Lumerin Bean, I let him know via our email exchange that I would ask him a number of questions. Right? Okay, got you. Okay, you can turn your camera off and I will bring you into the live. Right? So I told him that I'm going to ask you a number of questions because he said that he had a background in academia, as do I. And so the issue I had, as I said, I'm going to ask you a number of questions because if you're speaking on a number of issues, I need you to make sure that you're making claims that are factual. And like I said, this is not I gotcha thing, but if you're going to, well, once again, the term African American wasn't created in 1988. The term African American has been in use since the 1700s, right? And that's why when he brought that up, I said that's not accurate. Right? Malcolm X had the Organization of Afro-American Unity. T. Thomas Fortune and John Edward Bruce, who were both Pan-Africanists, they had the African-American organization they created in 1892. So the term was not created in 1988. That is simply adverse to facts. And we even find, of course, articles in the New York Times referring to us as African-Americans in the 1700s. right? So, and that's one of the things why I ask these questions. I said, if you're going to speak on an issue, I have no issue with someone having a critique, but you need to have an informed critique. Don't talk to me about Pan-Africanism if you don't know the history of the movement. You don't know what the core tenets of the ideology is. You don't know the history. It's hard for me to take you serious. Like most people who watch my platform, is I have a vociferous critique of feminist theory, right, and feminism as a whole. But I can actually make that critique because it's a informed critique. Well, actually, it was. I mean, if you don't believe me, you could do the research. But I'm a scholar. I'm a PhD. I know what I'm talking about, right? I have a background in Black Studies, bachelor's and master's. Yeah, but I have an informed critique. I'm not just bloviating. And the biggest issue for me, and I think one of the sisters mentioned this, is when I would ask him a question, he would begin to kind of go in these roundabout, just talks, but he didn't actually directly answer the question. And it was because he wasn't able to. That's the reality situation. That's why when I would ask these direct questions, because I told him, I even sent him, and this is something most people don't know, I actually sent him a list of the primary questions I was going to ask him. I sent him probably 3-4 days in advance. He said, hey, these are the primary questions I'm going to ask you. So he knew what questions were coming. It wasn't like this was an aha moment or a gotcha. I told him, I said, I'm going to send you the primary question. Now, there are going to be some subsidiary questions, but these are the primary questions I'm going to ask. This is going to be the issues. And he couldn't answer the questions. And so this is something that takes place. Like, I don't have an issue with individuals being adverse to Pan-Africanism. You don't have to be a Pan-Africanist. But I do have an issue with individuals promoting misinformation. And Luma and Being, you could tap in and be part of the conversation. It doesn't make me beyond reproach. But as I told him on my platform, I can't allow people to make claims that are false with absent challenge because it hurts my professional credibility. This is the reality. This is my career we're talking about. That hurts my credibility as a scholar and as an academic, as someone who is responsible for curating the minds of young black students. Well, I had to interrupt because he wasn't answering the questions. He was just going on tangents and telling stories rather than answering the question. That's a problem. And people do this all the time, right? I have conversations with brothers and sisters, barbershops, etc. And when they don't know the answer, they begin to bloviate. So this is the issue here. Bawana, I'm going to let you finish, and then we're going to get to Afro Diaspora News, and then we'll get to Chat GKP.
Sure. This is all I was saying, Doc. I think that what he wants is he wants other countries of the world to reciprocate in a way where it exclusively benefits Black people in the United States of America. Unfortunately, America doesn't work that way. You don't live in America by yourself. In places like these so-called Black countries in the Caribbean and Africa, you have Black people who are in control of the state. So they have a different relationship with Pan-Africanism. This is why you can have exchange with teachers, doctors, engineers, travel, etc., because the person at the top is making a decision. Unfortunately, in America, is a different situation. So it seems like the relationship is not reciprocal, but it actually is. Right. All around the world. And I think that you could speak to that. Again, Dr. Lumumba, I think that you gave an excellent interview. I'll just leave it there and let the brothers go.
I appreciate it. And one thing I did notice when I began to press him on him not answering the questions, he started saying, well, why are you being mean to me? Why are you being upset? So on and so forth, right? Playing the victim, because now I'm putting you're in the proverbial corner where it's being highlighted, right? People are able to see that you don't know what you're talking about. So that's an issue as well. So we're going to go Afro Diaspora News, then we go Chat GKP.
Yes, sir. And peace to the panel. Thanks for having me up. And I'll try to be brief as possible. I'm African American living in the Caribbean. And to be honest, I support African Americans that are Pan-African, but I also support the FBA movement. Now, I have to be honest, the brother Dave Anderson, he really did ask a brilliant question. And with all due respect, your response, Professor Dr. Lumumba, it was inadequate because I would have worded the question a little differently. What have any of these African nations or Caribbean nations reciprocated to African Americans that have literally fought and died for not only the 14th Amendment, but additionally, African Americans' tax revenue is allocated to the Caribbean and Africa as foreign aid. Additionally, to land my plane, even African American politicians right now that African Americans vote for, such as the mayor of Baltimore, the mayor of DC, and these countless cities that have African American mayors, they implement sanctuary city policies to protect illegal immigrants from all around the world, including African and Caribbean illegal immigrants. What have these Caribbean and African nations done to reciprocate what African Americans have done for them?
Well, I gave a number of examples of the reciprocation of Pan-Africanism throughout history. So if you didn't
That's
hear
why I
me,
said. That's why I said respectfully, and I would never insult you. That's why I'm happy that you had me up here. But that's why I said your response was inadequate because, in my estimation, and I stand to be corrected.
hold
In
on,
my estimate,
real quick, and hold
one
on,
sentence, brother, one sentence, and I'll pass the
real
mic to
quick,
you.
hold on. You can overtalk me. And Mr. K made a good point. Foreign aid is a front for U.S. imperialism, right? Most of our tax dollars, most of our tax dollars goes where? Dr. DAW, I see you. You could turn your camera off, and I could bring you in, or you can keep your camera on. It's a front for U.S. imperialism. Number two, the overwhelming majority of our aid goes to what? Is it real? Right? That's a reality. But in number three, we don't have any control over that. I mean, we could talk about the impotence of the Congressional Black Caucus, right? But we have to be cognizant of these things here. That's not something we have control over. And like I said, and as Mr. K stated, and I can say this because I've reviewed the literature. There's a great book on it right here, Who Owns Haiti? Right? People, power, and sovereignty. This is nothing more than a front for U.S. imperialism. So immaterial, how we feel, Americans' foreign policy is imperialism, and they're going to use our tax dollars to do what they want with it to further their imperial global goals. So it's something to consider there.
I hear you. And am I able to respond uninterrupted? It'll be less than 10 seconds.
Go right
Respectfully.
ahead.
And I have to say, I have to call this out. I noticed that you like to interrupt your guests when they're making a point that you disagree with. But
But I
the 10
interrupt people
seconds,
all the time. I interrupt people even when they say something I do agree with. That's just my
clearly, brother.
problem.
But let's have a dialogue, please. When you speak about U.S. imperialism, you also have to acknowledge that these Africans and Caribbeans are willingly abandoning their country to come to the U.S. and pay.
That's not the case, and we've been through this before. I remember who you are now. You like to engage in anti-black bigotry. We don't do that here. Chat GKP, go right ahead, and then Dr. DAW, you can as well. And I'm sorry, family, I forgot that this is a guy who comes on all the time, and all he ever wants to say is these individuals are abandoning the countries. They're abandoning the countries. Individuals from the West Indies. So once again, it's another person who's acting like a child. So we're gonna take you off the platform. Leaving their countries is analogous to African Americans who we know in the Black community. The African American community was deindustrialized. The schools were we had a middle class flight, white flight, etc., and it created an echo chamber of violence and criminality and just an unhealthy environment. So what did African Americans do? Now that smartly, you move to another neighborhood. People do this all over the world. Chat GKP, go right ahead, and then Dr. DAW, you could go ahead as well.
Yeah, peace, Dr. Bakari, and peace, Dr. DAW. But yeah, excellent interview, and I'm glad you exposed this phony academic, Mr. Anderson, because it's not as if evidence, proof, answers to the brother's questions were not given. They were given repeatedly and copiously. If I could offer one, because the question at hand is, what have the diaspora done for the benefit of African Americans as a whole, right? I can give an example of that in the form of the history of Richard B. Moore, one of the founding members of the African Blood Brotherhood, who did follow a policy, not just to benefit African Americans in the United States, but Black people globally. But if one just looks at Moore's efforts during the Scottsboro trial, to help free the Scottsboro boys. I can't remember, I think it was 8 or 9 boys, right? Who were being railroaded and on the way to being lynched by the state of Alabama. This is a man from Barbados.
I'm familiar with what you're talking about. Go right ahead.
Okay, yep. Traveled to throughout the United States and around the world, promoting the case, raising funds, raising awareness, and including marching on Washington, D.C., petitioning the president, FDR, And that's just one of the many ways in which this person who was from Barbados, right, put forward efforts. And he wasn't the only one. He operated within a cadre of other Black diasporans. And the reason they're diasporans is not because they migrated to escape Barbados per se, because at the end of his life, he did return to Barbados. And then he demonstrated Pan-Africanism by splitting his collection, which had been put together at the Frederick Douglass Book Center, where Queen Mother Moore and others helped to establish the issue of reparations and promote reparations for Black Americans and Blacks all over the Caribbean. But he split his collection between the Schomburg Center, and we could talk about Arturo Schomburg.
I was going to mention the Schomburg as well. Yeah.
So, I mean, there are many examples, right? But he split the collection, which was considered the second greatest collection of Black-related materials at the time, between the Schomburg Center, and he was a personal friend of Arturo Schomburg, and his native Barbados, which had just launched the University of West Indies. And you can find his book collection at the University of West Indies in Barbados to this day.
And if I remember correctly, there are 3 different campuses for the University of West Indies, correct?
Yeah, Trinidad is a major campus, Mona, Jamaica is a major campus, and then the Cave Hill campus in Barbados. And then there's satellite campuses throughout the Caribbean as well. Again, some might say an example of Pan-Africanism, right? But hey, you know, some people in the chat were suggesting that no credible evidence was given. And while some of this was covered there, I just wanted to show that person that we can come up here and give you all that evidence, plus and then some. All you got to do is read a book.
Yeah, and this
Take a class.
It's a big issue. A lot of individuals don't read. Another way that Pan-Africanism benefits Black people is, so if you have Black people from other countries immigrating to the United States, right? Typically, they're going to live in predominantly Black areas, right? We have census. The higher the population, the more federal, of course, dollars you get. So that would be one tangible way that we benefit. It doesn't matter if the individuals are immigrants or even illegal, right? If you have a majority, you have a larger population living in a congressional district, that congressional district receives more higher level of federal funding.
And,
right? That would be an example.
And if we went to the level of the personal or the interpersonal, right? One could do a study alone on West Indian and African American coupling. Right?
I could give an example. Intellectually, is Hubert Harrison. He was the founder of the New Negro movement.
Yep, absolutely. And the Liberty League, which hosted Garvey, right? But I mean, if you look at the interpersonal, right? You look at Hazel Scott, Adam Clayton Powell, power couple. You look at even Malcolm X's parents, Earl Little from Georgia. And his mother, Louisa Little, from Grenada, right? You could go on and on and on. So I bring that up to suggest that this idea that Black immigrants are inherently antagonistic towards African Americans,
it's not true.
It's total bull crap.
Yeah, and I can say that as someone who's worked, has been a Pan-Africanist over 20 years, someone who works in the community, someone who works in academia, like that's just not true at all. And typically what you find is when you come in contact, and you all can speak to this, with African, and of course some of this you could say is because we're in academia, individuals tend to be far better educated than just a lay person on the street. You typically are embraced.
But the point is,
my wife is Ghanaian, for crying out loud.
Yeah, the point is, these people will say that you're not giving them the evidence, but the truth is they're not listening to the evidence. They're not double checking it. They're just dismissing it immediately as if it didn't happen. When the lived reality of Black people in the United States has been one of integration and assimilation, both in the involuntary period and the voluntary period. Because if we go back to slavery, and I know people talk about just the 300, 400,000 coming to North America, but this was a population that was reinforced with new bodies from an array from across the African continent, and including some Native Americans, constantly reinforcing populations throughout the Americas, including the United States. And then in the voluntary period of immigration after the Civil War, as you then had more voluntary numbers, and then we see the U.S. government stymie that. or attempt to stymie that in the 1920s. So
Yes.
people are still coming in and going back. And then after 1965, you've had a larger deluge of more modern Black diasporan immigrants. And some of the ethnic differences are real, and sometimes they do aggravate intra-Black tensions, but that's normal. That's just normal human behavior. The through line is that this thing we call African America is it's an evolving ethnicity that assimilates, includes, and wraps into something that is always changing. So I'll leave it there. Appreciate your show. Appreciate what you did there, because that brother was spreading a lot of misinformation over the last 2 months publicly and confidently as if it's true, and it's total crap. So
and that's the thing, you know, I wasn't aware of him. I do give him, appreciate him actually responding to my email. But some people told me about him. I didn't know him. But I told him, I said, I cannot, if you make a claim that's opposed to facts, I'm going to have to address it. I have to stop you because it's my platform, an actual doctor, actual PhD. I'm not Cheyenne Bryant, where I'm claiming, right? You could Google my name and my dissertation will come up, literally, right? I said, this hurts my credibility if I allow someone to come on my platform and say things that aren't true or that are opposed to facts. I mean, it just is a reality. There's no way around that. And so, but once again, and you all may be aware of this, in academia, right? And this is really what you should do with anyone. If you have to critique of a particular issue, you first have to show that you have a working knowledge of said issue before you start to critique it. Would you all agree with that?
Absolutely. And I'll defer to Dr. Dahl, who's waited patiently.
Yes.
I know he's about to drop some knowledge, but peace to you in the show.
Peace. Dr. Bakari K. Lumumba, how are you? Can you hear me?
I'm doing quite all right. Yes, I'm doing quite all right. Where you calling from, brother, if you don't mind me asking?
Baltimore, straight out of the
Farm City, okay.
ABC conference here in Baltimore. I'm in Baltimore, but I'm presenting at the ABC conference today. I mean, not today, tomorrow. I was just there today. And I wanted to use that as just one example. First of all, let me back up. I want to say I've been watching you. I appreciate your work. I think one of the things that I think you did an awesome job. I mean, just like being very academic, like with him, like he was it was like a fish out of water. Now, at the same time, I gotta give you grace. Gotta give you I gotta give you mad respect for just even entertaining that conversation. To me, to entertain that conversation takes a high level of certitude in yourself, a high level of confidence in yourself and what you know, and also patience. Because honestly, I would analyze this conversation a little differently than a lot of us are, and I would say that he wasn't interested. It didn't matter. Doesn't matter what you would have said. His framework was like, I don't care. It's like I don't even see if I frame it the same exact way as if he really is being genuine. I'm just gonna be honest. That's just me. That's just a psychosocial conceptualization, because I deal with FBA all the time, and they typically move the goalposts. Every question you answered, he moved the goalposts. And in fact, I think they set the stage in such a way to make the conversation unequal, unfair, and not necessarily, I'm going to say fair. Because one thing I noticed is that when he was asking you for examples, he was asking about what has Pan-Africanism done? What has Pan-Africanism done? What he didn't do, what he did in turn was showed you what some individuals done who he superimposed FBA onto, which is a very different type of construct. And for me, that's why I always frame FBA is a movement. I frame FBA as a cult. FBA is a identity category, which is a subcategory within the African American community. That is a quote unquote movement. I don't care what they want to call it, Freedmen, FBA, the delineation movement, whatever it is. They do a lot of mental and intellectual disingenuous gymnastics. Yes, absolutely, we on it, right? Yeah. So again, to ask, so he can pull anybody out of history and say this is what we did. In fact, the reality, and let me tell you why to be a double standard. Because if he see, it's a double standard because he's looking at an individual, and maybe you and I haven't done. We don't know everybody. That person who have created the GPS, we don't know everything about his history. He could have been a Pan-Africanist. But what I'm saying is, I'm not saying he was. I'm just saying that it makes it very unfair in general. You know what I mean? So with all the information that you have, all the knowledge, I hear it. Even with all his unfair advantage, you held it down. That's what I want to say. Go
right ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you go.
Well, and so, but like I stated before, this wasn't a situation like I was trying to set up an aha moment. I emailed him the majority of the questions I was going to ask him before. I can show you all the email thread. So I let him know when I bring people on, even if this is a person I disagree with, I'm going to send you the questions beforehand. I sent him the primary questions beforehand, so he was aware of that. The issue I had was, of course, the movement of the goalpost, right? When he talks about, suing Umar Johnson, that's absolutely nonsensical. The work is what represents the movement, not somebody who's using the name, using the concept to promote themselves. I said, we have more to, I said, I know this as someone who travels to the continent. I'm going to be going to Africa next month, who's been throughout the West Indies, even South America. People don't take him serious. Right, even our students, they talk about him as, they see him as more of an entertainer, right? But the issue that I tend to find, and this is something I do think is unfortunate, is that when I am in conversations with individuals who identify as such, factual information doesn't matter. And one of the things I was about a lot of people was like, the platform, but as big as it could be, and it was like, it's because you don't grift.
Absolutely.
Right? BGS, I need you to cam up in queue so that I can see who you are. Then I will bring you into the live. Just to make sure you're not trolling. So these are some issues. I gave examples. There are numerous examples of Pan-Africanism not being one-sided. For example, the brother who founded in Chad, the political organization, a political party that led to Chad's independence, was founded by a brother from Panama. Right. So these are examples of Pan-Africanism not being. Oh, that's right. Yes. These are examples of Pan-Africanism not being one-sided, but it doesn't matter because it doesn't fit the narrative.
Absolutely. And I wanted to say, the one example I wanted to give is I'm at a conference, ABSI, which is an international organization, which is Pan-African in its origin, which encompasses everybody globally, and you cannot. He would deny it. But it has impacted the way that we provide Black mental health collectively, not only in the U.S., but also it impacts across seas as well. So it's no denial the work that those like the Akbars and the Amos Wilsons and the Wade Nobles and even the other social scientists like yourself and Dr. Marimba Ani, and so but that's on a psychic level. That we cannot act like on a psychic level that Pan-Africanism, African-centered thought, whatever it is, that it has not impacted us, because what impacts us on a mental level ultimately impacts us on an emotional level, and then also on a behavioral and material level. So, but again, they want simple conversations talking about Biggie Smalls. So they want simple conversations. They want to get you caught in what Frank White and who got sued and
whatever. And if I could very quickly, I don't mean to cut you off, but I'm glad you brought that back up. We talk about Biggie Smalls and his mother saying, "I don't want you selling drugs." I say, well, most parents who are parents don't want their child selling drugs. That has nothing to do with telling you not to be connected or involved or have friends and be in community or proximity to African Americans. Most parents are going to have an issue with you saying, I want to be a singer or a rapper and not getting an actual college degree that will lead to it, that provides a tangible skill. That has nothing to do with trying to disabuse yourself or being in a community with African Americans. So he was making claims that has nothing to do with what we're talking about.
Absolutely.
BGS, go right ahead, and then Mr. Wright, we'll get to you.
You know what? I'm so sick of this FBA stuff, is because the FBA is something that got out of the box and going way beyond what it's supposed to be. Okay. It's there for what? For claims for what? Restoration, right? For African Americans, right? Okay, for reparations. That's all it's for. That's all it's for. All this other stuff about FBA and what it means and fighting against Africa doesn't mean anything, okay? Outside of reparations talk, okay? I cannot go to Ghana. I cannot go to Jamaica. I cannot go to South Africa and claim reparations because I'm not one of them. That's the only reason the class actually Okay, so ADOS and the FBA, all it means is for reparations claims to your government. That's all it means. Okay,
Right.
outside of that, it should not actually go this far. Should not be a beef.
Yeah. And one of the things that one of the brothers came on the platform, he was West Indian. He says, I'm from the West Indies. I've never in my life thought about trying to gain access to reparations for that
Right.
for African Americans, right?
Exactly.
And so that's why I would ask the question well, what resources are being attributed to us that African or West Indian immigrants are getting? But then the real question is, I said, you're attacking African West Indian immigrants when the top 5 groups that are immigrating to America aren't Black.
Yeah, that's true. And
So it's just an excuse to attack other Black people.
nobody talks about Pan-Europeanism, okay, which exists all over the world. Okay.
I mean, what do we think NATO is?
Yeah. Oh, NATO and a few other things. But what do you think's going on in the world right? That's beyond the scope of this conversation. What's going on right now with Iran and Ukraine? Okay, that's Pan-Europeanism. But the thing is that I understand what people are saying. Okay, and there's a way to actually have a discussion with your government about your rights. Okay, there's certain things that immigrants can, because of their skin color, get included with your group, right? We actually signed on to that, okay, with Haitians and Africans signing on to civil rights and them having access to education, stuff like that through us. We actually signed on for that. Okay, we actually signed that. That's why we brought them in the first place. So we actually agreed with what is going on with as far as civil rights in those groups. Okay, if you don't like it, don't attack them. Go to your government.
Yeah, that's something I mentioned. I said when we talked about, because a number of individuals who ascribe to FBA stated what about scholarships? And I said, well, if there are individuals who are getting scholarships that are designated for Black people, for African Americans, then that's an issue you take up with the institution that is disseminating the scholarship.
Yeah, but the thing is, the biggest people that get what Black people are supposed to have as descendants of slaves are not immigrants. They're called white women.
White women.
We don't even talk about that. 87% of what you're supposed to get are going to white women. We don't include them, do we? I don't see FBA attacking white women. How come they're not?
Why when I asked him about, okay, you have an issue with the guy from Florida, the congressman from Florida, whose policies are empathetic to the Black people.
Who's born here? He's born here.
I said, cool. I said, but you pointed out that he's from Jamaica. I said, what about all these other Black conservatives whose policies are empathetic to the Black community? He didn't even know what their policies were.
Yeah.
I said, because if you were serious, you would be knowledgeable of these individuals who have policies that are detrimental to the Black community. No, you just want to attack the guy who's actually of Jamaican ancestry. I said, I'm not stupid. I know what's going on here. And I asked him, I said, what are their policies? But I don't have time to get into all of that.
I mean, you had a woman of Indian ancestry, okay, 2 of them actually. One on the Republican side, one on the Democratic side, running for president. Okay, I think it's Nikki Haley. I think that's her name. Okay, she's running for Republican president. Okay,
yes.
She's not even Black.
Right.
Anything against her?
Yeah. Yeah.
The thing is, this FBA stuff, in my opinion, I have no qualms against the FBA and Tariq Nasheed. Okay, number one, you screwed up. You should have got behind ADOS and tried to get reparations through. Okay, you split the vote. Okay, you did Democrats a favor by doing that. Okay, that's number one. Okay, number two, the rest of this stuff is meaningless. Okay, about going against the Black people because they're not FBA. So what? Okay,
exactly.
Are they getting the job that you need done? That's all that counts, okay? Because Netanyahu comes here and gets all kind of money from the United States, okay?
Yes, he does.
For Israel, you just gave $200 billion to Israel and that Iran fight, okay? Nobody says shit about that, okay?
No one says a word.
And you squawking about a few people getting scholarships in the United States? Are you kidding?
Right. Absolutely ridiculous. In fact, the professor who led me to conscience, I was actually at the precipice of dropping out of a community college. He was from Liberia. He's the one who taught me about Kwanzaa. I had never even heard of Kwanzaa before. I'm an African American. This is a man from Liberia said, hey, why don't you celebrate Kwanzaa? Right? So, you know what I'm saying? So it's absolutely nonsensical. Very quickly, Mr. Wright 2026.
Hey, what's going on?
Hey, how you doing?
I watched the interview. The last about 5-10 minutes, I didn't hear a lot of people's reactions, so maybe they would have said things that I'm about to mention. But a few things I had an issue with was the brother engaged in a lot of ad hominems. He engaged in a lot of cherry picking. He engaged in a lot of goalpost moving. One issue I had an issue with was he kept mentioning my responsibility is for foundational Black Americans, African American people. Here's the deal. No one says anything is wrong with that. But why do you have all this vitriol towards our brothers and sisters from the diaspora? That's the point I wanted to ask him. Like, what is it? What does that come from?
He didn't provide a proper definition for the term diaspora.
Correct.
But he's a college professor.
Right. And he didn't realize he contradicted himself. On one point, he said he supported Louis Farrakhan. Louis Farrakhan is actually of West Indian descent.
Yes, it was Louis Farrakhan from the West Indies. Both of his parents are West Indian.
Right. So that's a direct contradiction right there. And then he mentioned a few people. He brought up Biggie Smalls. He brought up Busta Rhymes. Anyone can cherry pick anyone to support their viewpoints, right? So I can cherry pick. I can point out people that are from the diaspora, from the actual continent, that actually support Afro-American people. You know, he still never gave any reason why, you know, this ideology is problematic, because if you look at every ethnic group in the world, they operate in this manner, right? So you have Chinese, you have Jewish people, you have Arabic people operating right here in America, but they understand, they pay homage to their homeland, correct?
Yes.
I can't speak for anyone else, but I'm not going to identify with a country that view me as 3/5 of a human. I'm not going to identify with a country that use my people as cannon fodder in every war. I'm not going to identify with a country that I have to beg and scream and crawl for basic civil human rights. Right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. So I think you gave him 3 separate points on how, you know, Afro-Americans benefited from Pan-Africanism. So I noticed he moved the goalposts. He says, well, I want to know in the last 25 years. So
very quickly, I don't mean to cut you off, but Newell stated this, and this is a great point. When I cornered him about him making claims that were false, he says, well, I'm a humorist. And I said, well, we have exactly conversations here.
Exactly. And one of the things he made, when you brought up a few points on how Pan-Africanism benefits African Americans, he quickly stated, I want the entirety of Afro-Americans to benefit from it. And it's like, well, he did that on purpose because he set the bar so high that it would be impossible to document something like that on that scale. Right. So, you know, this was deliberate. So the guy just suffering from Afrophobia. If you look at Black people, whether they're in the diaspora or actually on the continent, that have this type of mentality, we cannot associate with these type of people because, once again, like I stated before, every other ethnic group, racial group operates in this manner globally. I think one brother brought up before Pan-Europeanism. That's really a thing. Yeah, you mentioned NATO, right? What is NATO? White people, European countries doing what's in their best interest to seize global power, right?
Yeah.
You see, they operate like this throughout the world. This is nothing new. We're the only people, we're one of the only groups of people that refuse to get on board with what's really going on in the world. Obviously, we're not that way, but I'm just saying we have to deal with, you know, Black people that things in terms of, you know, anti what we really are. I don't want to identify with my colonizer. I don't want to do that. Right? So, and I mean, that was part of the disconnect. We're going to bring you here. We're going to indoctrinate you with Christianity, and we're going to replace what you were and implant something completely different that's subservient to us.
Yes, Dr. Malana Karinga mentions that. He calls it memory replacement. Dr. Golly, what is his name? He wrote the Ali Missouri. He talks about this term of what he calls contrived amnesia. And that speaks exactly to what you're talking about, to where they take your worldview out, your mentality, your ideology out, and superimpose theirs upon you.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Conference of Berlin. I know I mentioned this before, but I think it's a perfect example. These are European nations, and America had delegates as well, right? Conspiring to seize control of the entire continent of Africa, right? You know, so what is this an example of? White men coming together, collaborating to seize control, power, natural resources from Black people for the benefit of white people globally.
Yeah.
Come on now.
Yes.
I mean, this is what actually happened here.
This is what's going on here. So, you know, it's unfortunate. Like, and I stated before, we had an exchange offline via email. I provided him with the base level questions I would ask. So this wasn't like aha. He knew what questions I was asking, why, and what they were about. The second issue was I told him, I said, I can't allow you to come on my platform and make claims that are those facts. He says, well, we could just let the audience decide. I said, respectfully, I said, the majority of the audience are lay people who aren't knowledgeable of the subject matter. So we can't say, well, if the audience agrees with what you're saying, that means that you're correct. They don't even know what you're talking. They don't even know what we're saying. They don't know the information. I said, so I have to, because this is my warehouse, and I have to say, no, this is what's factual, this is what isn't. This is why I asked him, what are the core tenets of Pan-Africanism? When was Pan-Africanism created? What's the history of the organization? Who coined the term? I said, because you have to show that you know what you're talking about, that you are knowledgeable of the subject matter before you begin to engage in the conversation. This is how it works in the real world. But you don't have to do this when you're grifting.
90% of people don't go past outside of their own 6 blocks radius. Okay, 90%. Okay, this is well above their level. Okay, so asking artists actually engage in something like this or decide on something like this that they never study is disingenuous. Is what it is. Okay.
Absolutely. When we talk about identity, that's why I asked him, are you familiar with Nigression's theory? Never even heard of it before. But we're talking about, you're talking about your Black identity. Like, get the fuck out of dating with this rookie shit, man.
Yeah, we you know, in my group for the last 25, 30 years have been trying to integrate Africans and African Americans together. Okay, and white people are the biggest people to actually try to stop this. Colin Powell actually wanted African Americans to actually be part of AFRICOM and help police Africa, right? They wanted Black soldiers. Guess who didn't want that? The Europeans didn't want that. Okay.
Well, of course, you had Afro Americans lining up to go help and support Ethiopia, in the Italian invasion, and the American government stopped them. There's actually footage online from it.
Yeah,
but they don't stop white people, American people, from going over to fight for Israel, do they?
Right. Matter of fact, W.B. Du Bois led a hands-off Ethiopia rally in Harlem. I believe. Right. So it's just, you know, like I said, and I had let me share my screen with y'all real quick, family, because I had a number of examples. Because when he did when he had a conversation with the brother,
like, who do you think led the South African protests against apartheid? Those are American Black students in college, okay, in the 80s and 90s.
So, you know, when he had a conversation with the brother from Haiti, the overweight brother from Haiti, he asked him, give me an example of Pan-Africanism in practice outside of social media. So I had all these examples just off the top of my head that I wrote in like the past hour. Right, that I was going to provide as an example of Pan-Africanism in practice, not just a concept or idea, right? But when I saw that, okay, this isn't going anywhere because no matter what I tell him, it doesn't matter, right? I said, okay, there's no need of even finishing the conversation, right? We talk about they say African Americans not liking Africans not liking African Americans. So, well, Malcolm X, when he went to Nigeria, he was given the name Omowale, the son who returned home.
Where did Du Bois actually retire and die?
And I've been to Du Bois's home, which is now a museum in Accra. I've been there.
Come on now.
I've been there. Got pictures and everything. Matter of fact, I'm gonna be honest, so I can put this out here. I'm in community with brothers. I became a bit emotional when I went to the his grave site that's on the campus of the museum. I became a bit emotional.
Guess when Obama was president, who the biggest hero in Africa on the continent was? Obama.
Yeah, because they were happy to see an African American, a Black man in America doing something great.
Yes.
Right. As a matter of fact, I had a quote here where I was going to talk about Marcus Garvey's Negro World newspaper. and how Jomo Kenyatta stated that Africans memorized its articles to share with other Africans hungry for some doctrine which lifted them from the servile consciousness in which they live. This is coming from the book by Robert Trent Vision, The Americans Are Coming, Dreams of African American Liberation and Segregation in South Africa, page 29 of Howard University Press. So I have receipts. And the thing is, I would ask him, well, give me an example. He would make a nebulous claim, and when I would ask for an example, he couldn't do it.
I mean,
this is something that individuals who align with this concept and idea or movement say all the time. When Clemson Cure had the brother Dennis platform, they said African and Caribbean immigrants are getting benefits that are aligned for African Americans, but they don't give an example, right? I said, and the one example David Anderson gave of a person who was not an African American getting benefits that are supposed to go to Black people was Indians.
Yeah, Indians get it. Yeah. The TPS program with under Biden. Okay.
Yeah. So
nobody. Okay, but this is your government doing this. This is not you doing it. Okay, it's your government doing it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's unfortunate, but I think this was a highlight. Like, I'm always willing to have conversations with people who even disagree with me. But the problem is oftentimes, and Mr. Wright, you said this, moving the goalposts, ad hominems, things of that nature, being extremely disingenuous, right? And as you stated, please show the email chain. Okay, I will show the email. Real quick, family, if you're watching, make sure you hit that hype button. BGS put me on game, hype button. Also, make sure that you thumbs up, hit that notification bell, and make sure you like, subscribe, and donate. Make sure you hit that super chat. You're watching
I have no problem Black people in America taking pride of who they are in their experience. But the thing is, you can't let it get this far, okay? In fact, the key to reparations is the continent of Africa. Okay? That's your leverage, okay? Just like Europe is leverage for the United States, okay? Your leverage is it Africa. It's not here. It's not enough of you, okay? Your leverage is there. Got to use it.
I'm going to show the email chain. The sister asked me to show the email chain. So I reached out to him on the 20th. Hello, Mr. Anderson. I hope my message finds you well. My name is Dr. Bakari K. Lumumba. I'm the progenitor of LumumbaSpeaks.com. I'm writing to formally request an interview with you on my platforms, Lumumba Speaks and Be Quiet Network, regarding your views on Pan-Africanism. He responded back the next day, early in the morning. Thank you for reaching out for the invitation. I appreciate your interest in having a conversation about Pan-Africanism related issues. I'm certainly open to discuss with people who hold different perspectives. In fact, I think those conversations are often the most valuable when they're conducted in good faith. But before I commit, I'd like to clarify a few things so we both had the same expectations. He has a number of questions, so on and so forth. I've learned over the years that conversations involving identity, history, ideology, are most productive when both participants are clear about the format and expectations from the beginning, etc., etc. I said that yes, I answered all of his questions, right? But I did say number two, I said yes, the conversation will be live with ground rules. Diversity of thought is welcome. No epithets of any kind. Anti-black bigotry would not be tolerated. Facts or feelings. It's like the argument, not the person, or ad hominems, red herrings, or straw man arguments. He did that, of course, on numerous occasions. One can give their opinion, however, no one is allowed on my platform to make a claim that is ahistorical and averse to facts. I'm a serious scholar and academic. Allowing farcical claims on my platform hurts my credibility as a scholar, professional, and developer of young minds. I sent this at on the 21st at 8:59 p.m. Of course, he responded back. Thank you for your thoughtful response. He does state that that said, I think it's important that neither of us serve as a sole arbiter of what constitutes the facts, particularly in areas where serious historians, economists, anthropologists, and political scientists continue to disagree. This is a meaningful difference between an objectively false statement and an interpretation of history that is actively debated within the scholarly community. So with this was his retort, I responded back on later that night. I said, overall, your position works for me, and I understand the distinction between an objectively false statement and an actively debated historical interpretation. However, as a published scholar and peer-reviewed academic journalist and a former professor and lecturer at Tier 1 institutions, I maintain the role of arbiter of fact on issues within my specific research expertise: Pan-Africanism, African history, Black culture centers, critical race theory, and Black racial identity development. Please know that my strident position regarding the issue is not personal but principled and experience-based through the omnipresent practice of Black soapboxers, YouTubers, and the general public, mainstream media promoting misinformation to Black audience for personal benefit, i.e. scamming and grifting to make a buck. I mentioned 19 Keys, Tariq Nasheed, Donna Samir, O'Shea Duke Jackson, David Banner, Cheyenne Bryan, to name a few. in the promotion of dysfunctionalism and miseducation. Moreover, a prominent example of this on the organizational level is the Nation of Islam, Hebrew Israelites, and Black Church, all of which are notorious for making ahistorical claims and misrepresenting facts or doting parishioners and obsequious onlookers who lack the intellectual capacity and knowledge base to challenge their equivocating homilies. Thus, the views of laymen who are woefully ignorant of scholarly literature and lack a working knowledge of history are immaterial on my platform. The goal of Lumumba Speaks and Be Quiet Network is to provide factual information to the masses of Black people to aid in addressing our global social, political, and economic quagmire. Thus, the audience's opinions, viewpoints, positions, and thoughts are of no consequence, as they lack the education necessary to provide a credible opinion on this subject matter. I will send over the primary questions and topic outlines several days in advance as requested. Please let me know what dates and times work best for you next week to coordinate our discussion. He says, okay, he agrees. And then, of course, let me see here. I think let's see where I provided the questions. Okay, yeah, I appreciate your confirmation. And so, of course, these are the list of the primary questions. So the sister asked to see the email thread, and of course, I provided that. Yeah. Let's see here. America is a violent imperialist state, and it simply is about the natural resources and abundance of Africa. Yeah. So once again, this was not an aha situation. He knew what was coming. He knew what questions I was going to ask. But as you say to Mr. Wright, a lot of it was, moving the goalposts, red herrings, and of course, simply not asking the questions or trying to be a humorist when I cornered him. So once again, something to consider, extremely unfortunate, but I appreciate everyone for tapping in. Until next time, family, y'all know what to do. Always bet on Black. Peace. Before you go, make sure you hit the subscribe and like button. Thank you for supporting the channel. And remember, here at Lumumba Speaks, we always bet on Black. Peace.